What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 27 of Spoiler Alert. I'm ChanManV, and joining me, of course, as Ellohime and Eat My Addiction. And we've got a brand new guest today. The Uber Ginger is joining us.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
Well, some of us are just waking up.
I'm fucked up. I'm fucked up after that.
Ellohime has emotions.
I have emotions. I didn't even know till today. I'm quite well. I just got in last night, midnight from North Carolina. So I have like nothing scheduled for the next couple of weeks, except for my buddies in town from Army. So yeah, other than that, I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. I just finished another show, so I literally was rushing, and then I get here, I'm like, "Where's everybody?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
that just means you're like the mode, right? You're in like show mode right now.
Exactly.
Basically.
Like,
I'm ready.
I'm
ready. Welcome, everybody. No.
It's gotta be shitty, like going from one show to the other, and then everyone there like hasn't already been on a show because you're like in show mode, man. Like you're like ready to go. You're like, hey, everybody, how's everyone doing today? Blah, blah, blah. And we're like. We woke up 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, man, bring it down a peg. I can't handle this right now. It's too early.
Well, I really wish you would just downgrade to us so we don't have to come up to you.
We'll meet halfway. How about that? Somewhere in the middle.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Right.
But yeah, I'm well, Ginger. What's going on in your world? What's anything coming up?
Geez. Well, I mean, I'm excited to go to E3, but that's like forever away from now. It feels like, of course, it'll be tomorrow. Next thing I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how that goes for sure.
Cool. I'll be there too.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Wait. Okay, so you guys, man, there's so many people going to E3. I was given
You
an
should go,
opportunity to
man.
go, and I turned it down, and now I'm like,
You suck.
I think I'm going. I still have to talk
are you?
to...
All right, sweet.
Yeah, I got to talk to Omid from OP Group about like the specifics, but I'm pretty sure I'm going.
when is the date for that?
It's June
12th through 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's we got a little time.
Yeah.
Okay,
Got about a month. Yeah.
I'm doing spoiler alerts live for the first time on stage.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that is gonna be
Yeah.
awesome. You mean spoiler alert?
No, sorry, not spoiler. Yeah, I'm doing spoiler alert, guys, without you guys on a live stage. I forgot to tell you
everybody
guys.
else.
Totally forgot to tell you guys. It's a brand new cast.
Yeah.
It's a pretty, well.
When he gets on,
I'm doing
dude, he
streamer
gets on,
showdown.
like Andy Milonakis and like a bunch of like big celebrities that stream. He's like, "Hey, we got a new show. It's called Spoiler Alert."
No,
You
I'm
just
doing.
replace us with bizarro people that are very close. So like I get like Seth Rogen or something, and then like just down the line.
Who would play you? That's a
Dude,
good question.
That would make Tangent so fucking pissed. Like, come on, man! I already get the Seth Rogen thing on every day of my career, and now he's actually on Twitch. This is bullshit.
No, I meant.
Oh my god, no.
I meant streamer showdown, guys. Okay, I meant streamer showdown.
That's awesome. That's a huge.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I can't wait.
Are you like worried about all the like the logistics and the
I'll
the planning
be
on
behind the whole thing and directing and producing it. So
that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
like,
really?
are you nervous? Are you ready, or how you feeling about it?
it's still a ways to go, so I haven't really been thinking about it just because I'm
Usually, I've done a couple panels at events, and they're usually like they have like a whole team there, a production team. That
Yeah,
just
the
does
Twitch team will be there
streaming.
too. So
I pretty much just had to like sit down, drink water, and just like mouth vomit for an hour. And
Oh, jeez.
I feel like Chan's gonna go there. They're gonna hand him like a fucking wrench set or something.
No.
And, like, they're like, here you go, set it
They
up.
got a
buddy."
great
Yeah, you gotta
production
put the whole
team.
set.
Yeah, you gotta put the whole set up. He's just there.
It's like, here, you can have the
for
stage.
3 days.
Do what you want. What? Oh my god.
It's in the contract. No, it's funny because like as a kid growing up loving video games, E3 was like the holy grail.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's the
Absolutely.
thing that like I told myself like in my life I'm never gonna get to go to, but like maybe like in like at the top of the bucket list kind of thing. Maybe one day if the stars align, I'll be able to go. Right. And now
every year
I'm given the opportunity to go like paid
And you're
for,
like,
and I'm like,
maybe
I can't
not.
be bothered to get in a plane. I don't want to fly.
I've been to E3 like 3 times, I think, and
Uh,
every single time, the most memorable part of E3 was across the street in the Hooters parking lot where Devolver does their booth, where they set up a bunch of Airstreams and they just like
serious?
have a barbecue with beer and shit.
Yeah.
You just go and they
hang out
set you up to go like preview games in the Airstreams that are air conditioned, and like that was the best part of it. Like E3 itself, I was like, this is stupid. They don't have beer in there. They don't have like barbecue ribs and shit, and all the Devolver folks who were super cool.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's. I can't wait. If I go this year, that's like the first stop.
That's like the E3
tailgating,
like nerd.
Yeah, no,
that is totally.
Right.
It's totally tailgating.
Dude, that's funny that like but little me, definitely like younger me, if they could see me right now, they would just be like smashing their head against something.
Like, what's
why
wrong with you?
like why am I me?
That's right.
You
Ginger, you-
jaded old fuck! Don't you see? This is the Holy
What's wrong
Grail.
with you?
Look at your beard. Did you give up on life?
Oh.
What happened?
my god.
This
Ginger,
is
you
my
you
first one.
Yeah,
so
this
it's
was
like
my first
nerd
one
bucket
too.
list.
This was actually my
Oh,
first
yeah?
one too. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's cool.
last year I went to San Diego Comic-Con, so I got to check that off. And then this year I'm going to E3, so I'm checking that off. So eventually I'll get through all of my nerd bucket list items.
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
think last time I went, I ran into Kumail Nanjiani and his wife.
Oh wow.
And I was like, oh shit, it's Kumail. Like I knew him from like the Harmontown,
Mhm.
like before Silicon Valley even came out. I think that I ran into. I was like,
funny.
oh shit,
He's
I gotta
so
get a
funny,
picture.
man.
Nice.
He's really cool, super nice dude. But then like we got a picture together. His wife like went off to go get food, and then like I'd been following him on Twitter for a long time, and then it was like sometime early this year. Like I see someone retweet like a political tweet of his, and I was like, that's weird. I should just see that on my feed, right? I
Mhm.
go to his account. He's blocked me on Twitter, and I have no idea
What?
why. And
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I tweeted about it. It was like, so apparently Kumail N, blocked me on Twitter, and a bunch of people responded saying like, he has a tendency to do that if he's like really in like that like political mindset. If you say something to him that he misreads, he might block you. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I probably replied to a tweet of his and said something I thought was funny, and he wasn't in the mood for it. Like
Oh
I
my
do that.
God.
I do that too. And so I was like, all right. So I put it in my Twitter profile, blocked by Kumail Nanjiani. And then like I'm friends with Spencer from Harmontown. Like we talk
Yeah.
every so often and stuff. And I feel like he may have relayed that to him because they work together a lot. And then so at some point he unblocked me and I got to follow him again. So it was a really awesome roller coaster.
This is like
Wait,
a
who is
mental
this?
process
Wait.
everybody goes through whenever you're
Kumail
blocked.
Nanjiani from Silicon Valley, the Pakistani.
The Pakistani guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? He gets
Yeah.
sensitive about political stuff. I saw him on the green room, and he was just
Well,
like,
I mean,
joke
he's a
after
fucking-
joke.
He's an immigrant. Like, of course he's gonna get sensitive about political stuff with Trump in the
Whoa!
office.
Now
right?
when you say stuff like that,
He is an immigrant. He
You're
was,
blocked.
He was, he
You're
lived in
blocked
Pakistan.
right now. We're
Yeah,
blocking
He lived
him.
in
You're
Pakistan
done.
until he
We're
was
blocking
like,
him.
until he
He's
was in
blocked.
college.
no, I know. He talks about that on the green room. He talks about that. On the green room.
Yeah.
Did you just assume his temperament?
I read a fucking New Yorker article about him because this movie's coming out soon, and like it goes through his like history of like when he came to America to go to college and stuff, and how it was like he never shook a girl's hand until he was like 20 or like 18 or something when he was in college.
So his
in
Silicon Valley
Chicago.
character is actually him.
Is
This is
actually
crazy.
him? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it is him. God. All right, are we ready to get into this?
Yeah, all right,
We're
let's
gonna
talk
get
about.
into it.
All right, this week, guys, we are doing the Netflix TV series 13 Reasons Why. Those of you who never watched the show, what we do is we do a full out spoiler alert, dive into the show, the series, and talk about everything and anything that pertaining to it. So if you have not watched the show, don't want to hear any spoilers, then just mute our stream for now. You can keep watching this, but just mute.
Yeah,
the stream.
just look at our faces
Yeah.
and just make up what we're talking
Don't
about.
leave.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
understand.
Don't leave. Just leave it going.
Okay, so I guess we start off. This series has been a very big topic of discussion, since it's come out, and I figured it would be a good one. That's why I picked it last week. I would say the first thing I wanted to talk about is like I think it's good to talk about it from an artistic side of things, as a TV kind of piece and that sort of thing, and then talk about maybe more the just the real life, maybe parallels and just that sort of it. So, let's talk about it as a TV series. Like, generally speaking, high level. Did you guys like it or dislike it?
Oh God, Chan, you can't even start like that. Man.
Why? Just say you like or dislike. It's like literally binary. Easy, easy.
It's like okay, let me start with this. Okay, let me do a little pre-show rant here. Okay, I warned you guys. I'm gonna be I'm gonna be very ranty about this. Okay, but I want to be clear about the people that listen to this, whether it's on iTunes or the people here right now live and all that good stuff. I have a very specific opinion about the show because of my past.
Yeah,
the girl Hannah reminds me a lot of a girl that I used to date in high school. Her attitude, like everything that she does makes me go, oh my God, that's so-and-so. And that did not end well. So I am quite biased on that front to begin with. Then on top of that, I early in my not early in my life, but in my early 20s, I had a friend commit suicide, which was obviously is fucking tragic. And on top of that, high school to me was not that important. I mean, I spent most of my time avoiding high school because I played EverQuest and I wanted to level my character more than I wanted to go be around a bunch of fucking shitheads. And like I got along. Yeah, I think there's certain people when it comes to high school, like some people never grow out of high school. Like that was like their golden years. And that was and then you get on Facebook and they're like, oh man. But then you get people like me on the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like I was just passing through. Like I was homeschooled growing up also, so I kind of didn't have enough credits to graduate, and I was there. I was there for a couple of years. I met people. Everybody I met, I got along with for the most part. I had very little trouble in high school with itself, and then I was gone. So high school to me is like not the golden age of my time. It wasn't a big important time. Sure. It was just like a shitty time. So
I never went to public high school. I went to public middle school. And then I was bounced around different schools because I was a problem kid, and then I landed in an alternative high school where we sat on couches, we could swear, we called all our teachers by their first names and stuff.
This is awesome.
Once we turned 18, we were allowed to smoke with the teachers behind the school. It was in the basement of a church that was super cool, and they were very queer friendly, and we got to put on these elaborate plays that were really fucked up, like 1984 with live rats in the cage and stuff. Like Fantastic. It was like it was amazing. Awesome. I had the most completely opposite high school experience. So like when I watch shows like this, like I love Degrassi. I love Degrassi because I never experienced that. So I know it's not real. I know it's like overblown and bloated and like it's a lot of it's fictionalized, but they put a little bit of truth into it. So when I watch stuff like this, I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. I get a little glimpse of what high school might be like right now. Possibly.
Yeah, that was my reaction too. Like, is that what kids really go through? And especially like in a normal high school, because I went to a performing arts academy in high school. So my experience was also not the norm.
Right.
Everybody was like, we'd walk around and we'd have art students who were like drawing murals on walls in the courtyard.
Nice.
And we'd have people who were like, singing songs, and it was totally different. Everybody kind of just loved each other. The only cliques you had were like the drama people and then the art people and then the band people or whatever. Okay. But it was like we still all got along.
It's just I would love to see that. I know, it's just cliques of different types of nerds. That's awesome.
It basically was.
So were there even jocks in a
no,
performing
we didn't
arts?
Have sports so they didn't have we didn't have sports at my school.
Chorus, come out to play.
That'd be funny. The choir people are like the jocks in public high school. Oh my god, that's
like we don't need
the band. Exactly.
Actually, I think it was like the theater people who would be the closest to the jocks. But
that makes sense.
Now that I think about it, the guys who played Magic the Gathering in the library, they were probably like the the nerdiest of the
nerdiest,
nerds
yeah.
of everybody.
So
I have
the
we
most-
all got along.
Okay, so
So wait, yeah, Chan. What is
so
your
I'm
high school?
definitely a product of public high school. So I
Okay.
you know, all of that type of things. I definitely, you know, there were parts of it, you know, that did I think resemble some dynamics of it. And it's exaggerated in a lot of ways too, of course.
Yes.
But there were certain
You got to
things.
take into account that like high school when you were there is completely different from high school now, especially with like
it is, but they were
you know with
Yeah,
iPhones
but-
and stuff
sure,
like that.
but there were still things. I mean,
Yeah.
like I think bullying and just like that aspect of it, I think is you know, a bigger issue than it was back then. Even though bullying was around back then, it's just now you have these
honestly
apps.
that's the thing that like I even
Yeah.
like even though I didn't go to a public high school, that part of it I can relate to. There were still bullies in
yeah,
our fucking
definitely bullies back in the
our
day. Like,
40-person alternative high school. There was still people that were like, you know, that had like a big head and would fucking pick on people, but they didn't get
Yeah.
very far because the teachers like they knew and they would fucking sit them down and be like, look, stop being a fucking cunt and do your homework. Like they would just like
I
they
mean,
would
there
just straight up
was all
put them in their
kinds of, I
place.
mean, I remember I used to be called, I mean, you know, chink and stuff like that. That would be, dude, that was used like a lot, you know, back when I was in middle school.
God.
And,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, what was crazy, what was interesting about it, and like I didn't really think about it until like later, you know, in life, and I was like, you know, the way I was able to overcome it is just like I just ignored it, you know, and just talk to them. They'd call me chick, and I'd just be no big deal, you know, like I just like ignore it, and then they just eventually just stopped, you know. So you know, that was something I learned a lot later in life, but that sort of thing. And I was kind of lucky because I'm not lucky, but I was in a really unique position because I was a super nerdy kid, but I was kind of amorphous. I think the best way to describe me when I was growing up is I was amorphous. I could adapt to any group, and my personality is just so diverse because I'm into sports, I'm into music, I'm into arts, I'm into, you know, video games, I'm into. So I was a little bit of everything. Obviously, more so on the nerdy side. But, you know, I was captain of my tennis team, you know, I was in the choir, I was at a lot of those things. So I was able to, you know, be a part of all these groups. So I wasn't really bullied, you know, I wasn't bullied much at all whenever I was in high school, except for maybe with what I wore, because, you know, I couldn't afford like, all these great clothes or anything like that. But
Sure.
Outside of that, you know, I think I avoided, but I saw a lot of other people, you know, like a lot of even friends or whatever that used to get bullied. And thinking about it now, it's just like, oh my God, that was just so brutal, like thinking about it now.
Yeah.
And at the time you didn't really think like that, which is,
It was
you know,
just
it's something in
that
itself.
was just reality.
Yeah,
so
that was
you
just
didn't
reality,
Know anything
exactly.
different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the years that I was in high school, yeah, we definitely dealt with things. There, I mean, I wasn't ever bullied, but I definitely got in fights. There were times that you know, people challenged me, and I was like, all right, let's fucking go, because that's kind of the personality that I am. But yeah, I was like you, Chan. I got along in a lot of different groups. I didn't really buy into the cliques. I just did what I did, and I think people respected that. And I actually had a lot of friendly people that I knew, I guess I could say. I had friends there, you know, in every class, and people kind of knew me as kind of a cut up and, you know, class clown type thing. But for the most part, you know, I mean, in the 2 years that I was there, things happened. We actually had 1 year where like six classmates died. There were some suicides, there were car accidents, there was all sorts of stuff. Or like it was like almost like 1 month after the other. So I've dealt with high school when they're doing grief counseling. I've known people who have died in high school. I mean, when I was in high school, that's when 9/11 happened. I remember watching in the morning show, like on the screen, the second plane flying in, you know, like, and of course that whole
That's
thing. So when I
crazy.
was in high
Wow.
school, things were there was definitely shit there, you know. I didn't have a cell phone, but everybody else fucking did. But yeah, so I'm not totally foreign to some of the concepts on the show and how that happens, but I do accept and acknowledge that, you know, this was, you know, I would have graduated in 2004. So, you know, it's been 10 years since then. So of course things are definitely changed, but I have to say that this show at the end of the day is, and this is one thing I want to kind of to talk about, is that this is for entertainment. As bad as bad
It's
as
art,
that sounds,
you know, it's like
this is entertainment. And I want you guys that are watching and listening to understand that the opinions, while I have, you know, especially when we get into suicide and all that shit and bullying, those are my opinions on those things. It doesn't make me right or wrong, but that's how I feel about them. And it's not necessarily, I want you guys to differentiate when we're talking about the show itself, Hannah, and stuff like that. I don't want you guys to think I'm being insensitive about suicide, but I am going to have very critical critiques on the character Hannah, the show, how they handle suicide, all that stuff. So I don't want anybody to jump in here and misunderstand us. We're here to talk about the show, but I'm sure it's going to filter into our real
it
life
has
beliefs.
to. I mean,
there's,
it's like
the
impossible.
biggest elephant in the room with the show that I feel like what isn't discussed as much because, like, personally, I was entertained by the show. I was hooked by it. I liked the characters. I liked the dialogue, even though it's unrealistic for high schoolers to be that fucking smart all the time.
Right.
You know, like, but and like I thought the actress that played Hannah is a fucking gem, and I want to see her in literally everything now. Like, she's such a talented person. My biggest takeaway after I watched it and I started thinking about it was that they were trying to send a specific message about bullying in high school and suicide and the right way to tackle this. Unfortunately, the framework of the show sends a really dangerous message to people who are in high school, who are suicidal, specifically girls, because it sends this weird message of, hey, guess what? If you kill yourself, you can be legendary.
Yeah,
you can make everyone pay for it.
Revenge,
everyone, exactly. Everyone's gonna remember you and mourn you, and you can seek revenge on those who wronged you, and you'll get away with it. You know, like you'll be memorialized if you do this elaborate, like, whatever, like, plot. And it's not immediately obvious, but I can see how some people who are in that mindset might take that, like, and run with it, you know, in a really dangerous way.
It makes suicides for some people seem glamorous.
It romanticizes it.
Yes.
It
romanticizes
romanticizes it, and but again, that's the entertainment factor. You know, it's like,
I know that's the problem. Like, as like,
it's hard to
as
separate
a show, as a plot device, it's really, really engaging, and it kept me watching. But unfortunately, there's another side of that coin that's not okay for a lot of people.
I think, like, so, like, I have two. Well, my one major criticism, just like on this particular part of it, is they focus so much on, like, the revenge piece and not necessarily development of Hannah as a character. Like, I don't really feel like I knew who she was, except for on, like, a very surface level. I more knew about the things that happened to her, and that the people around her were basically kind of shitty. Which, when you're talking about a person, and the person that is, the whole basis of the show is around, she committed suicide. Like, there should have been more of her in it. I didn't get that feeling that I even really knew who she was as a character.
I know what you mean by that. I mean, I think they try, and maybe this was intended. It's like every second or every time there was some of her personality coming out, immediately it'd be shut down by something bad happening to her. And because there were moments I was like, oh, she's a lot like Ellen Page, or she's like Juno, in some ways, and some of that would come out, especially when she was talking with Clay.
She's what do you call it, the pixie dream girl.
The
quirky pixie dream girl.
Exactly.
So I know what you mean by that. Yeah, I agree with that.
There's also a very real and pattern to this too, like a strategy for entertainment. You have to understand that to give Hannah personality takes away the ability for the every girl to be able to insert themselves into her position. So when you have like let's take Twilight for instance. Okay, it was a great hit, big book and everything. If you go into the actual writing, when it goes into explaining Edward and all that stuff, it's like his perfect face and his I think she said perfect like 1,000 times. Yes, I did read the first book. And it's like they really go into describing this Adonis that is Edward, but whenever it describes the main character, the girl, I forget her name right now. Bella. Yeah, Bella.
Katniss Everdeen.
Always Katniss Everdeen. It's basically like she's like a normal girl, she's plain, she's sort of misunderstood, brown hair, brown eyes, that kind of thing, because the idea is the author wants any girl to be able to say, oh, that's me. So if you give Hannah too much of a personality, you actually take that ability to be engrossed and insert yourself, however selfishly that is, into the character. So at least that's how I saw it, and that's why I totally agree with you. But I think that may have been done with purpose.
Exactly. There's entirely that possibility.
Kind of getting back to what Diction was saying, just how it's kind of dangerous. I guess how they were portraying it. I felt like when they wrote the entire script and when they were making the movie, they really wanted it to be geared more for folks that aren't suicidal. You know, like the folks that are actually around. You know, the friends, essentially. The friends
it's
and
definitely
the parents.
aimed at the bullies. It's
And the
like
friends,
like
and the parents,
like
too. The parents and the bullies.
Yeah, it's meant to be something that you reflect on yourself. Like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't treat this person this way.
Right.
But
Right.
unfortunately, everyone has a chance to watch this, so it's gonna hit people who are suicidal too. Like, it's not just like you can't make them not watch it, right? They're gonna see it.
Yeah. I wouldn't even classify like just the bullies, because there was a little bit of people who, like, they weren't generally bad people, but they did shitty things, and those still had an effect on they still had an effect on Hannah or whoever, you know, might be the object of that. So, you know, being careful of what you do, even if you aren't just generally an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Oh god.
Can I say one thing? Fun fact. This whole series was filmed like 40 minutes away from me up in Vallejo, California.
Oh wow. Cool.
And one of the teachers in like the first episode, he wasn't a prominent character. He's only in the first episode, but like Clay he's going into class and the teacher stops him and says that the principal wants to see you or something.
Oh, okay.
That actor, his name's Ross Turner, delightful man. We used him in literally every short film we did in film school like years ago. He was the most professional, showed up on time. He knew all his lines. He knew everyone else's lines. And he would, if you wanted him to do something exactly the same way in another take, he would do it exactly the same way. So it was like, when I saw him, I was like, oh shit. And I started researching, like, oh fuck, they filmed the whole thing in Northern California. That's awesome. That's really cool.
It is cool. Yeah. Definitely.
And expensive. It's really expensive to film.
For sure.
That's why everyone goes to Canada. There's a bunch of tax breaks. I don't know why they did it here. Like, super expensive to film in the Bay Area.
So let's talk about a little bit about let's not even get into the characters yet. Let's just talk about the cinematography. Was there anything that stuck out to you guys about the actual cinematography of the show? I know personally that I really was blown away by some of the transitions that they used when explaining then and now, right? And there's certain film devices that they use, like Clay's accident at the beginning of the series is not without purpose. Again, it's to set up a nice cut on his head, so you know when you're here and when you're there.
Yep.
I thought that was a really clever device.
It is a very clever device, and not only clever.
I've seen like some movies and shows that try to do that, and they don't like you need a visual representation of where you are in time and space. Like I watched Incendies, which is Denis Villeneuve, the guy that did Arrival. He's doing the Blade Runner sequel. One of those older movies from Quebec, and it shifts time periods like throughout the whole film. Unfortunately, it doesn't do a very good job of like letting the audience know that you're back in 1985 now. Okay, now you're back to the present day. It doesn't do a very good job of that. It's a really good movie, but that's like the one thing. So I like that they was like, okay, let's give him a cut in his eye or on the top of his head. So you know, this is present Clay, that's past Clay.
Yeah.
Because he is our eyes into this world, right? He's our narrator, essentially.
Now, like healing aside.
No, he's not our narrater. She's our narrator.
No, he's not the narrator. He's our protagonist.
Yeah.
We see this through his eyes and then a little bit through Hannah's as well. But it's always through him, basically.
Kamu in the chat says that he didn't like it because his cut was there for 5 months. Do you guys realize that in the space of the show, it's only like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Like it's not even 2 weeks. It's like a week or something.
Yeah.
Like it was like 2 weeks ago. This all happened, and this is like the week after. It's not 5 months, but I do agree that the cut. Like the cut bothers me. Like every time, like every episode, it starts looking like
you need
more
stitches,
septic.
Boy.
Yeah, like it starts looking more septic and doesn't heal. And like I did definitely.
I don't need a doctor.
As a film device, it's really good. Now, if they would have kind of kept, I love how they bandaged it a couple of times, which is great. Good. Let's get it out there. But god damn, man, that cut looked like it was good. I thought at the end of this. He was gonna die to that fucking cut because.
But then they had the volleyball hit him in the head too. It's like, dude, you really have to hit him there again?
Hits him in the head. The volleyball hits
like,
him in the head. He just keeps he does get it reopened a few times.
Yeah, like they keep trying to call attention to it and stuff, and you're like, okay, but this poor kid's head. Like,
you can't remind me of Harry Potter's mark, man. I'm like. It's so
It'll
funny.
be that kind of scar after
Yeah,
all
it
of
was
that.
similar,
Jeez.
right?
Yeah, I just thought like at the end of the show he's just gonna because he's not showering, right?
Yeah.
So like he's not showering, he's not taking care of himself. He's got this huge gash on his head that probably should have been stitched up, and then like it gets infected, and hey man, Clay dies. He dies at the end.
Clay
To his
dies at the
fucking
end.
Well, who knows? You know, if there was another episode or two, Clay might have ended up dying.
Yeah.
You never know, right? We'll talk
It's
about
like what
that,
you
I
don't
guess,
know is it's
towards
not
the
a gun wound, but they just can't tell because it's cut so fucking open that at the end
Right.
it's like
Yeah.
it's Clay all along. Anywho,
Now,
but yeah, no, I thought that's. Go ahead.
cinematography wise, I don't think it was a major part of the TV show, you know, like it
Mm-hmm.
is with some others, but they did use, you know, little tricks, and it wasn't something that stood out that was bad or I think necessarily good. So I think generally that's a good thing. But I did like scenes where they, you know, he was looking back at certain moments. He was actually in the scene too. You know, there were some scenes where there were two of him, right?
Yeah.
And I think those scenes were done pretty well. And I don't know, just even the little things in the first episode. I feel like the first episode had a little bit more camera shots, that even just her talking, you know, when it was just her mouth, you know, like into the tape and things like that. Outside the first episode, I don't really remember too much other than that.
Really, I actually, there was a scene where Clay goes to Jessica's house, or somebody's at Jessica's house, and the scene shows them leaving, like in present day Jessica's house. They slide open the sliding glass door, and as they slide it back, the reflections in the sliding glass door are back in the past. And it shows the party, and then it goes into the party. And I was like,
point,
man,
yeah,
some of these like transitions from, you know, here and now were excellently done. Like they're beautiful. And I've always been a big fan of transitions. Something about it, it's because it tells a story. It's the context of the story, really.
Yeah.
And what you show, what you shoot, all of that is calculated and done with purpose, I guess, is the word of the day with me, but it's done with purpose. And some of those transitions were just absolutely beautiful, especially some of them concerning, you know, Clay being there and then Clay also being there. And then it kind of just slowly moves back into the past or slowly moves into the future. There's a lot of times where Clay is watching himself in his mind's eye, but he's actually at the location. So you get this weird mix up of, it's flashback, but he's actually there presently.
Right.
And so it kind of mixes it together.
Yeah, that's the part.
Yeah, and it
that
kind of
was
becomes
awesome.
like a dreamlike state, which I think they used very well to sort of push the story along and give you sort of both sides. Even in some instances, you see like the how somebody saw a situation and how somebody else kind of saw a situation. It only happens a couple of times. It's very kind of subliminal, but it kind of gives you that thing like, her truth, my truth. You know,
they mentioned that too,
that
right?
perspective. Yeah, that perspective on things, which I think is really, really, really important. So I thought it was a beautifully filmed show. Like I thought that they did a really good job. I didn't love everything, but a lot of it I could appreciate. And the music, oh my god,
yeah, that soundtrack.
The music's
music-
great.
Good.
The music was interesting, and it also kind of in the cinematography too. So there was a lot of like 80s reference, which I thought was interesting, because if you were gearing the show towards teenagers now, how much of that music would they know? I don't know. Although there was a lot of like throwback, like synthwave and type
Joy
of stuff.
Division, I believe, is in there.
Yeah,
which is like
Joy
a
Division was in there, which
great
is like,
song.
what? Yeah, so there was that. And then I also noticed there were it was almost like they were trying to throw back to like John Hughes films and stuff with like some of the shots. They did like the classic, you know, prom shot where, you know, that their faces close together and, you know, the lighting and stuff. And I think they had a few of those kind of sprinkled in throughout the show, but it was very much like when they were trying to frame the like will they or won't they romance type of thing with Clay and Hannah. There was a lot of that sort of like going back to older teenage films, or even like I got a little bit of 10 Things I Hate About You with like just the way that they had her talk sometimes too, and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting. And then the music kind of weaving into that too. I felt like they were trying to be super nostalgic in a way.
Yeah, I agree.
How many songs do you guys think were in that? I mean, for those of you who didn't see my Skype message, I mean, did you guys see my Skype message? I think both of you guys did, but
yeah,
in the chat, or whoever's listening, try to think how many songs, if you watch the show, you actually heard. Because like Uber said, they kind of weave in and out very quickly, and sometimes they stick around for a little bit. Sometimes it's very brief. But if you got that number in your head, it's, by the way, over 100 fucking songs.
It's crazy
in that show. There's over 100. And like I would say that I appreciated personally maybe like 20 of them. I think it's kind of a generational gap there for some of that shit. But there is an extraordinary amount of music in the show, and they I think they took great care in what songs they chose, but there are a lot of them. Yeah, there's a lot, and you don't even realize it because they move so fast. You may not.
They're not very long.
Popular songs.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that are just literally 10 seconds, but you know, they're all really good songs too. So I'm curious to see what the soundtrack or the list of songs actually are. I didn't notice it quite as much until I was going back the last couple days and kind of scanning through the episodes again. And I was like, oh yeah. Oh man, I forgot about this Cure song. Like, this is great. This is cool. But
the Joy Division song I downloaded. I've been listening to like on repeat. The Love Will Tear Us. Love.
Oh yeah.
It's like man, like there's a scene actually. Since we're still on cinematography, at one of the end of the episodes where he brings in the foreign exchange, which is one of my favorite parts. The foreign exchange students, those poor foreign exchange students, don't know what is going on, and he's like, he's being honest about what it is here. This is the climate. This is the school, and he just lets them have it. And then the other students come out and they're all pissed at him. And then the principal or the guidance counselor walks up and says, "Come with me." And that song kicks in, and like when he looks back, it's like, I'm just getting started. Motherfuckers. Like love will tear us apart and shit. And it's like, and he just does that look back and everyone's just staring at him. Even Tony's there like, good. What the fuck?
He was going
like,
postal.
That's when you see Clay. That's like, to me, when I saw Clay, like, this is Clay with a mission. Now he's decided. Now he's like broke. He's no longer that nice kid that you see in all the flashbacks. This bright, happy, kind of introvert, whatever, shy, but ultimately, very cool. He's a cool cat, right? But then when this thing with Hannah happens, he just completely breaks down. He's pushed to his limits, and now he's fucking broke. That's when he broke in that scene for me. And I was like, good. Now we get to see him fucking go after these bitches, right? Like now the blood is going to be in the streets. So that to me was one of the most powerful, just camera wise, vision wise, is fucking very powerful to me personally when I saw it.
So I wanted to, with Ginger, you mentioned just the whole kind of will she or won't she, type of dynamic, and we see that. I mean, I definitely love that aspect of it. I think it's a big part of the TV show too. But I wanted to get y'all's opinion on what do you guys think generally about how they presented the fact, or the way they demonstrated that if one thing would have changed, one thing, whether it was Clay actually kissing her, it was her just getting up and leaving or saying something when she was frozen, any of those things.
Frustrating.
That
fuck that.
No, wait.
Fuck that.
Wait. How do you think they were with presenting that if one thing would have changed, that she wouldn't have killed herself?
I feel like it wasn't one thing though, especially after even by episode 3, it was so many things. And there are already too many opportunities for someone to step in, especially Clay, that little shit, to step in and be a decent person and reminder that high school isn't the end. It's 4 years of your life, and it's gonna, and they're sophomores in the show, juniors, even
I don't even know.
They're almost out.
They're sophomores and they're seniors. They're seniors and sophomores, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I feel like it was never the idea of oh man, if they only changed one thing, she'd still be here. It's nah, she had a pretty fucking rough go of it for that entire
Well, see, that's the thing. I actually think that they did a good job of making us feel like that. And it was just like a cascading effect that, because of all these things piling onto each other, the result of it was, her, killing herself in that position or whatever, or even just making this tapes and all those things. I actually felt like the frame of that was done pretty well.
I can understand your point on that. I do think that the show shows a good representation, or as probably as close as you can get while still maintaining some level of entertainment as to how these things can happen. These little, it's all these little things, these little decisions, did he or did he not do this thing, this, that, here I was, there I was, that kind of thing. And ultimately cultivates step by step. You watch it step by step through until this, monsoon. And I believe they even talk about the butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps its wings at this
in
place
the convenience
at the right
store.
time. And it causes a monsoon somewhere else. And I think that it was probably as close to accurate as you could when people go, how can this happen? How can kids in high school actually kill themselves or kill each other or whatever? And you see how the humble beginnings of that catastrophe, and you sort of follow it step by step, like I said. But I will tell you right fucking now, okay? Right fucking now, that if it's if we made this decision, or if we made that decision, or we all killed Hannah Baker. No, fuck that. Fuck that so hard. Hannah Baker killed Hannah fucking Baker, and not because of her suicide. It's because she continually and almost obsessively, masochistically put herself in so many situations that allowed her to get to where she got. It's like somebody sticking their hand in a beehive, right? And they get stung. And it's I totally understand the first time you've never seen the beehive, you don't know what's going to happen. You stuck your hand in, you got a little adventurous, you want to explore life, right? No problem. But you got stung, okay? No big deal. And then she goes back. And then she goes back. And then she goes back. And then at the end, she just takes the beehive and sticks it on her goddamn head and is like, I don't understand why I'm hurting. Well, maybe if you don't want to get hurt, maybe if you don't want all this bad shit to happen with you, maybe you should make better choices about how you spend your time and where you go. Maybe after you see your best friend get raped at a party by this one dude, maybe you shouldn't go to his house half dressed and then get in his fucking jacuzzi. At what point do we go, all right, Hannah, not that you're asking for it, but you're not doing much to fucking prevent it. And I don't mean the rape, but I mean the suicide, her attitude, her whole being. It's man, take fucking care of yourself. Just please take care of yourself. Don't put yourself in those fucking situations, and this shit won't happen to you. It's nobody understands. Well, you know what? Nobody has to understand. Just fucking separate yourself. It's not that hard.
Yeah, the most
I think
frustrating
at some level,
was,
though, she was hopeful that maybe this time it would be better, and maybe somebody would actually connect with her. I can see, I totally see your point, but I think I could see just the sliver of vulnerability where it's just but maybe this time, if I put myself out there, maybe it'll be okay.
And I can see that, and they even say that in the show. They're I bet you're wondering why I went to the party. Well, I thought maybe, but she did that 3 times.
The worst was okay, it all starts with Justin, the jock, right? Taking that picture of her, sending it around. So from the beginning, she's okay, don't trust this fucking jock. And then, later down the line, she agrees to go on a date with one of his fucking jock friends. He stands her up, and then he fucking basically proposes to have sex with her.
Well, he's not
in the very
jock.
first date. And then she denies him. And then his friend, who's also a jock, and was sitting there watching them have their little conversation, snickering with his friends, sits down. It's just quiet, and she's well, this guy's probably okay. It's no, they're all assholes. You can see them being assholes all the time. Just stop talking.
Yeah, but okay, all right. I'm gonna have to play devil's advocate here because we can't all agree on this. All right, so here's the thing. All right, so one thing is it's high school, okay, and I know a lot of you guys might not have been cared about high school or whatnot, but when you're in that environment more and you actually do care about these things, and especially if you're you don't have that much self-confidence. You don't have that much self-worth. I mean, it's kind of getting into what Ginger said. I think that you're just reaching for stuff, especially if you don't have many friends either. I mean, it's a different type. It's something that we might not understand, to be honest. When you're so desperate for any kind of relationship or any kind of connection to somebody, you will give chances to things that most logical and rational people will not consider at all. It's an irrational thing. sometimes, your emotions
but
and
how
hormones and things like that. I mean,
it doesn't no, but even then, Chan, it doesn't make any fucking sense. It makes no fucking sense. Like, I understand like Stockholm syndrome and all that good stuff, but if you look at articles and all that good stuff, yeah, all that good stuff, like all that psychological, like the wiring sometimes gets crossed and isn't always logical, that kind of shit, But at the same time, if you look up any articles about like girls who've had pictures of them spread around the high school, or girls who have been sexually assaulted or seen sexual assault or anything like that, those girls do not fucking go and half dress themselves and go party and jump in a jacuzzi with the guy that spread that picture around about them. Like there's a point where they've seen like. You get disgusted by it. You're scared of it. You shower with your clothes on, for Christ's sake. Like you don't even want to be naked in your own presence, much less around other people. And like there's just an unrealistic presence set by Hannah that she continued. It's like, it's weird. It's like Justin spreads this picture. Hold on, real quick. I told you I'm gonna be ranty. I told you. It's like Justin spread this picture around, right? He spread this fucking picture around about her. And then like 6 episodes in, which in their time is like a week later, she's like at a party with him, sitting on the couch next to him. Like it's no big deal. And then she jumped, he was in the jacuzzi with Jessica or whatever. At the end there, when they get into when she strips half down and gets in there. Like, I'm sorry, but in real life, none of these girls who are victims of this kind of fucking atrocity are going around hanging out with these guys that did this to them. Like never. It's unheard of.
Okay,
this
so
doesn't fucking happen.
I give you Bryce's house at the end. Okay, I don't get that. I can't. It's hard for me to imagine her, in the state she was in, deciding. Yeah. Okay, no. But that party.
I think by that point, she had just given up, though.
Yeah, but it's still weird that she goes.
Then you can't get mad. Then you can't get mad. Then you can't get mad when bad shit happens to you. If you give up and you don't care about yourself, you put yourself in harm's way, and then something bad happens to you. You can't cry about it afterwards. Like, that's my big thing. It's like, if even if she went there in a bad headspace and she was like, I don't care. I was broken. I was blah, blah. Well, you weren't broken, because when you got there, more bad shit happened to you that thrust you further down, and you put yourself there. And it's like, I just have such a hard time sympathizing with Hannah as a character. I have such a hard time.
I have a hard time, like, at the same time, saying, because it's almost like saying it's her fault, but then we go down the road of the whole like rape situation and who does the blame lie with? And it's constantly, well, the victim, what were you doing? What were you wearing? Did you put yourself in the situation, when that should never be the question?
Yeah. No, right. See, I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I think that the most important thing is the rape, and that is always wrong. That is absolutely 100% wrong. Okay. But I'm not going to sit here and not acknowledge that there are certain actions that people can do in order to keep themselves from getting in that sort of situation. It is not their fault, but at the same time, I acknowledge that there are decisions and choices that people make that put them in harm's way or give them a higher probability of being in harm's way. And that we should acknowledge that when people are being careless with their lives or their bodies or their time, that can lead to these horrible situations. Is it their fault? No. Rape is wrong. Rape is always wrong. So, it is never their fault. But that doesn't mean we can't look at Hannah and go, Hannah, you made some fucking poor choices. You not that you're not responsible for your rape, but I definitely think you're responsible for your fucking body, and I think you're responsible for your well-being, because you're the only one responsible for that besides your parents. Yeah. And if you're not taking care of yourself, then when these bad things happen to you, you don't be surprised.
So again, so I'm like with the Bryce thing, I think it was like a little bit to the realm of, it's hard for me to imagine her being in that position. But let's talk about the party, okay? Let's talk about that first year. She had all this crap happen to her. She cuts her hair. She goes to Jessica's party, right? And that's a perfect instance where, Ello, I think you say, like, why the hell are you going to the party? All these people freaking hate you and shit like that, right? But, when she first walks in, the first thing everybody goes like, Hannah, Hannah, Hannah. And everybody's like,
no.
That actually makes sense. I've actually seen that kind of shit happen before. That kind of stuff happens, okay? So
they talk about how like going to the party is like basically being in an alternate reality. So I think that was part of it.
I mean, it was too, but I've definitely seen people come to a party who, normally is not in that crowd at all. They show up to the party. People are like, just kind of like, whether it's a joke or it's not a joke, but they're like chanting them. And so they're kind of in the crowd. And this person probably feels like they're in the crowd, for now. And I can
get kids drunk enough to do anything.
I can kind of understand that, and then them feeling like, oh, maybe I am accepted into this kind of crowd. So
although you can't say anything, you were playing EverQuest when this happened.
That's true. That's obviously true.
I went to plenty of parties. But the thing was that like
getting together with your guild to talk about EverQuest is not a party.
We don't go and play Magic on the side there. Okay,
every Saturday night I had Mountain Dew and Doritos, and it was very drama. The guild one raid, it was intense. We were yelled at. Anyways, no, but my thing is it's this juxtaposition where they want to like create her as an outcast, but also make her popular and still accepted. It's like when these things occur at high schools, there is like criminal investigations that happen, pictures circulating about a girl, especially when it's nude or sexting or something like that. When this happens, this is a big deal in these high schools. These girls are outcasts. They're slut shamed. They're everything. And but like that's why this didn't make sense to me, because they want to paint her as this outcast, but when she goes to a party or when she goes around anybody, it's like everybody's friendly. It's like it's weird. It's weird to see. And I get that everybody's drunk. You walk into a party. Oh, so-and-so's here. Yay, that's fine. But we got to look at the context here, people. This wasn't just simply a rumor of this girl sleeping with someone. This was like documentation, maybe even illegal documentation of this girl's, crotch, and this rumor going around. It's weird. You can't paint someone as the outcast and then still leave them as popular and well-liked. Like it created a weird situation for me personally.
I agree.
By the way, I want to be clear.
It wasn't as big a problem for me, to be honest.
Yeah,
but
it seemed weird.
It's not like it never happens that people are nice to your face and then stab you in the back when you're not around.
Yeah, and they're just like, it's a joke behind this. Yeah, exactly. I saw the same way. It's kind of like, oh, she has a nice ass, right? She's got the best ass, on that list,
so
right?
Weird.
Yeah, and it's like,
I feel like even a part of it was like, it's painted as this big deal, as if like Hannah's the center of the universe, but that's because it's coming from her voice, right?
Yeah,
of course.
Like that is her universe. So when you think about it in the context of reality, most of those people probably forget she exists every day. Like they don't even think about her that much. It wasn't until she killed herself that now that's like on their mind constantly, because they know they're responsible. So it might have been a thing if she enters the party like, oh shit, I forgot Hannah existed. Oh sweet, she's here. Cool. I'm drunk, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
I'm curious, was I the only one who thought because it seemed very much just like focused on revenge with these tapes and everything. And the further we got, I was just like, is she gonna show up at some point and be like, I faked it, what's up guys, you're all fucking
there's a little bit of
like,
there's a little bit of Pretty Little Liars. I kind of felt like, especially in the very beginning of it, I was like, I mean, I only watched like maybe the first few episodes of Pretty Little Liars, but yeah, I had a feeling that it might no, it is definitely not, but I felt like there was going to be some crazy twist at the end at some point.
I think there is some crazy twist at the end. I think it opens you up a little bit to like a lot of mystery. Like I talked to Cora about this, and she was like, "I want a second season," and I was like, "I don't."
Wow, I don't.
And I was like, "I do not want a second season at all." And she's like,
"They're making one."
I know, and I actually think by making a second season, you totally change the tone.
You ruined the first season.
Yes, you ruined the first season.
Unless it's completely a different location, different characters.
It's not different characters.
And it's just like, but you can't call it 13 Reasons. Yeah, it's not. It's like they're just.
It's Jessica's.
She's not the narrator or the focus anymore, but it's supposed to like be other people's perspectives and like sort of the aftermath. But yeah, I think it totally loses the power of the first season when you're like, okay, well now we're just gonna go.
Unless it's an action story with Clay going around shooting people and like beating them up.
Well, Tyler. Tyler is gonna be jacking stuff up.
Tony on a motorcycle, just like knocking over fucking.
He's ready. Get on a tower and start.
Can we spend an hour talking about how dreamy Tony is?
Dude, he's Bruno Mars's. Totally Bruno Mars's brother.
He totally is.
Totally
real quick, I want to throw this out before we continue on, because we're coming up on the 2:00 mark. Guys, if you have things or opinions or anything you want to share with us, ask questions, talk about things, anything, Yeah, whatever you want. Get with Monkey Overlord in the chat, and you can jump on the show with us. We'll take your call. He's going to adjust your microphone, make sure you're good to go, and we'll pull you in here, and we'll obviously converse with you about something. If there's just something on your mind that you want to kind of.
There's a lot to unpack in the show.
Hop on the Discord. It's a Discord
is,
channel, guy. If you go discord.gg/ChanManV, get in the general voice channel, and that's where we're gonna be pulling folks from.
This is kind of weird, but since we're already on the end, let's talk about the end. And like I said, Cora said she felt unfulfilled, and my point was that's how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah, right.
Like you're supposed to feel unfulfilled at the end. That's suicide. You're like, not everything is resolved in a tight, little, nice little package at the end. And she says, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And I'm like, listen, a lot of that stuff, like like Tyler with all the fucking weaponry and stuff. Just for instance. Like you can surmise what the fuck is happening after we don't watch them anymore. Like,
looking at pictures, he has pictures of his hit list basically all lined up on the string.
I'm not even sure that that's necessarily a hit list. There's several scenarios.
Right. It could be.
There's several scenarios, right? It's either he is trying to make it look like they're suicides, right? Or he wants to kill all of them individually, and he plans to, like you said, Hitman style. Or he is just simply going to go and shoot up the entire school, which is what I saw it as.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because if you look at the weaponry, like I paused and actually looked at the weaponry in that fucking.
Oh man, there's some.
And I'm telling you right now, everything in that fucking box. If you've ever studied Columbine, if you've ever looked at the videotapes, if you've ever done any of that stuff, I was obsessed with Columbine when it happened. I was very young. I thought it was crazy. I wanted to know why. I took a lot of time. I even watched the security cameras. I was that kind of fucked up kid. Like I wanted to know, and everything that they have in that fucking box is everything that those kids from Columbine had. There are 2 pipe bombs. There's 1 AR. There's a shotgun, preferably sawed off, which is a federal offense. All these weapons were obtained illegally. We saw that in a scene. There are 2 handguns. There's tripwire. There's screws, which is typically what you put inside of the pipe bombs when you create them. And there's just tons of ammunition. And so when I think about, like, is he trying to stage suicides? No, that's kind of arsenal you don't need for that. Is he trying to kill these like individually?
Either.
Yeah, and that's
that they made it set up that exact same type of weapons and everything too, to give you that sense of like he's just going to go in and shoot everybody. Sorry, I totally interrupted you.
I wish.
And this, no, it's fine. And the point is that just to finish this particular rant, is that what it led me to go to say, all right, this is the butterfly affecting all over again, right? Here's it starts so small. Now we're at school shootings. So when people say, and it was just kind of a head nod to school shootings. Yes, we're dealing with primarily suicide here.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Off into these other things that happen.
Social, just issues.
So much worse. Yes, these social issues. It was a head nod to the social issue. Like, how can a teenager go and shoot up a whole school? Well, maybe if they all pick on him, maybe if he's a fucking stalker and kind of weird to begin with, maybe if they spread a picture around about him naked, maybe if they bully him, maybe if somebody commits suicide and there's some tame stuff, maybe this kid might just fucking flip his lid and fucking take his anger out on the school. And he says it many times. They'll hear me. I can take care of myself, mom. Like all this stuff. So I just was led to believe that, all right, a school shooting's on the horizon. He's going to go in there and shoot up the school. If he wanted to kill all these people individually, he would have done so with not that weaponry. That weaponry is so specific. It's so specific.
Yeah, I think if there is a sequel, that Tyler's point of view would be very interesting, or something that you could go off of, and leads into obviously
like
a school
lot
shooting.
More there,
yeah. I mean, how crazy would that be? That would be a very controversial season too. If that's
and that's the whole point of this whole fucking show too, is everybody's all like, we killed Hannah Baker. We weren't paying attention enough. We weren't friends enough. We didn't make the right choices. And while they're so focused on Hannah Baker and all those tapes and everything that she's going, these other kids are fucking hurting. And these other kids are being ignored, and these other kids are killing themselves and going to shoot up the school. So it's like they don't even get the point. And that's the point to me, is that it's asinine, right? You can't say we didn't show enough attention. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. Because in the process of trying to be sensitive to one person, you may be insensitive to another, and that triggers them. Who knows what kind of social or psychological state they're going to be in, or what's going to affect them, that kind of thing. So it just it's like all of that whole thing about Hannah and being a better friend, everything is a great message. Good. Let's all love each other. But at the end of the day, people are infinitely more complex than our body language, than our verbal language, than anything that we are able to communicate with each other can process. Like
Mhm.
there's no, and nobody's responsible except for the person that pulls the damn trigger or cuts the damn wrist. Like when it comes down to it, and there's nothing you can do to question it one way or the other because it's asinine. It's impossible to know. It's an impossible question. And while you're focusing on that, there's other people around you who are suicidal, you know, and are dealing with shit. So,
and I think that's what the ending was trying to touch on too. It was like not without like delving into it too much, but like, hey, there's still all of these like after effects, you know, like you mentioned the butterfly effect too. And I think it's a constant annoyance to me when like people are always all, well, I didn't get a complete resolution to everything that happened. Everything was left open, whatever. But that's a particular device that is used a lot because you're supposed to make your own conclusions and you're supposed to decide, you know, what's the next thing that happens. And, you know, not everything is always spelled out. So I was fine with the way they
especially not with suicide.
Yeah, especially suicide.
Yeah, the same people that love the ending of Inception will cry foul when shit like this is left open ended, you know, when it's like, dude, that was a fucking made up, you know, dream movie. This is life. There's not easy answers to everything. Like more often than not, there's no answers whatsoever.
And I find it particularly interesting with Alex because Alex is
I wanted to talk about Alex.
Yeah, because he's suicidal throughout the whole damn show, and nobody picks up.
That's
on
what I mean.
It.
So
Nobody
that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Like with the the script, were there elements of Alex that were supposed to be these signs of suicide that they were talking about? So that's that's what I kind of want to ask you. Did you guys notice each and every bit of it, or did you guys just were you guys surprised that he committed suicide at the end?
Not surprised at all.
It surprised me a little bit.
I've been ranting a lot.
It surprised me a little bit, I have to say, because I wasn't paying that close attention to what was going on with him. I know he had given up. I know he obviously quit everything, quit the jazz band. Obviously didn't care, at least in terms of this Hannah stuff, and did look depressed. But I don't know. I was still surprised at the end when they had him off himself. So then I had to go back and kind of look at it, and it's like, oh yeah, the signs were there the whole time. Just each one of these things. So I like that. I liked that as kind of a subplot that was going on that maybe not everybody caught.
Well, no, I definitely caught. I mean, there's so many instances throughout the series. I mean, okay, first of all, he seems to be obviously the most sorry about what happened. Like he seems to be the most impactful. Like, hey, we fucked up. Hey, it's our fault.
He probably did
the
least worst thing too, or one of the least worst things.
I agree. I totally agree. And there's a scene with him jumping into the pool full of wearing all his clothes. It's important that he's wearing all his clothes. He sits there. It's this unsettling scene where you're thinking, like, is he gonna fucking drown?
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought he was gonna drown himself. I did think he was gonna drown himself.
Okay, there's one example. Two, the example when they get Clay in the car and they start driving really fast. And they're telling him, stop, and he's not. And he's got that dead stare, like I'm gonna fucking kill myself. There's that. There's many times where he says there's especially towards the end when they have that like coffee shop meeting and there's something pops up and he says, oh, so if I die, you die, sort of alluding to it. He cleaned his room. Psychologically, when people kill themselves, a lot of times they'll clean the space that they're going to end their life with.
It's like a staging. They'll stage.
Exactly.
It's a staging. It's a closure. It's a process, right? And he cleans his room, and they show you that at the end when his dad walks in and says, hey son, blah. He's like, oh, your room's so clean. He's like, yes sir, no sir. So there, I mean, and throughout this whole thing, yes, the whole show, he's on a path to kill himself. And so at the end when he kills himself, I'm like, oh no shit. But here's the thing that makes me sort of go, oh, what the fuck was that? The last scene, and it's such a quick scene, and you don't really even remember. You guys might not even have caught it. The scene with what's the basketball player, the tall Asian guy? What's his name?
Not Mark is the other one.
It's
I'm gonna call him Mark.
It's Zach. Zach.
So Zach, there's a scene at the end, like within 10 minutes of the ending of the film, where he's sitting there and he's shooting hoops, right? And his phone, he goes over to his phone and he checks his phone. His phone vibrates. And if you pause it when he looks at his phone, it is him texting Alex going, did you go to the deposition today? What's going on? Tell me what's going on. Right. Call me. There's like 10 plus texts there from him. And all it says back is, please call. And we had seen Zach ignore Justin's calls so many times, but he actually picks up the phone and calls Alex. And when he calls Alex, Alex says hello, and that's the scene. Yeah. And then we find out that he kills himself shortly after, what was the purpose of that fucking shot? What was the purpose of Zach calling or calling Alex? And that was like probably hours or even moments before Alex killed himself. If you
Or
put
what
it
the
in a
hell did
timeline.
Zach say to him?
Yeah. Well,
What the hell did Zach say to him? What the hell happened? What, like what was the purpose of that? And it's such a quick scene, but if you like time it right, it's obviously after the depositions of that day, but before the evening because he's playing basketball and the lights are, there's light outside. So it's got to be like right before Alex kills himself. So what the fuck, this guy right here, like what the fuck was that all about? Do you guys even know?
I mean, I didn't actually notice that until you just mentioned that. So I would guess, if I were to guess how Zach was, I would guess that maybe it was Alex's cry for help, or he probably was trying to hint or maybe cry for help to Zach, and Zach probably did nothing because Zach did nothing the entire freaking show. Anytime,
maybe
like,
that was it. Maybe just that Zach finally engaged and tried to help. I mean, maybe is the point of that, but
maybe. But I didn't
That
feel
was what
Zach's
I got
transformation.
from it.
Oh, really? Did you feel a transformation from Zach?
I don't think it was like a transformation. I mean, I guess you could say in the fact that like he actually responded to someone, but it's definitely seemed more like he may have learned something at some point that he was going to stop ignoring everything else that was going on. That was what I took from it. And then like what happened in between, I don't know. But
it's a weird scene. It's so quick you don't even remember it, and I probably wouldn't have remembered it if I hadn't gone back and watched the last episode an extra time.
I didn't even.
There was a lot in that last episode, though.
Yeah,
there definitely was. And that was one thing that struck me as sort of weird. Now, people say that because that kid Tyler, I hear this too, like the picture scene where he takes the picture down of Tyler. Or not Tyler, but Alex, he has that remembrance of that time that he stopped the bully. But, some people take that as like, that's his hit list. And he was taking down the picture. Like either he killed this guy or something, like he killed Alex, but you don't know where in the timeline that is. He simply could have been pulling that picture down because he heard of the attempted suicide from Alex. Like we don't even know that. And if that scene continues with Alex, if you go back and watch that scene, right after that, Tyler says to him, I suppose you think I'm going to thank you for that. And Alex looks at him and says, actually, I don't ever want you to fucking talk to me ever again in my life. So it's not like a happy memory really after. It's sort of a bittersweet thing. Yeah, he stopped the bullying, but at the end of it, he still rebuffed Tyler and told him to leave him the fuck alone.
Right.
So there's a lot of weird little scenes like that at the end, just very short, maybe 15 seconds, something like that. And it just throws a bunch of wrenches and questions in, which, I think when the focus of this series is suicide, there's never a resolution, right? There's always going to be questions. That's sort of the point.
Well, we got a caller, so why don't we pull in?
There's so much more I want to talk about.
Well, we can.
Shut up, you're done.
No, we can't. We can. It's just might as well grab callers when we can.
No. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say like I'm against the call coming in. I just looked at the time and was like, wow, we've already been at this an hour.
I know, totally. Right. Yeah. Hey, so Lowell Russ, you around or you unmute yourself here? Welcome to the show. He just needs to unmute himself here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Uh-oh. I guess maybe.
Just kidding, guys. No caller. That was a joke.
I don't think he hears anything. Let me see. Oh, you know what it is? Let me do this.
Poke him.
It could be. No, it could be one of these. Let me see.
Like a dead corpse. Let's get sticks and poke it.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. Maybe that works. All right, let me try again. Hello? Lowell, you there? Oh, I think there's some other issue with it. We're going to have to figure that out. Maybe Monkey Orgler will figure that out. But
now Ella gets to rant more.
Yeah.
I warned you that I am going to be ranting. Like I told you guys, I'm going to fucking rant so much. I have so many more rants. Like it's like
okay. I think it might work now. Hold on, let me grab it again. All right, Lowell, you there?
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, there you go.
Hello.
All right.
Hey,
what's up?
welcome to the show.
Thank you. How you guys doing?
Good. You got a question for us or anything like that?
This is just a follow up on what you guys were discussing, 13 Reasons Why. And I just wanted to kind of like hear you guys' opinions about how, and I don't know if you guys were already talking about this because I had to close the stream for while I was like fixing stuff. But when the show started, or the show started airing, and of course people were like tweeting about how it's a good show. One thing that really caught my eye was specific venues on social venues online started having expressing negative criticisms of how like how the show, of course, the show shows like, has a lot of mature content and stuff like it. It talks about suicide. But what the part of the show that I want to like hear more of your opinions about is how do you think this show kind of is I would say kind of like accurate enough, or you think people are justified enough to say this show kind of like represents like the situation of suicide, or do you think this is too fictionalized?
No,
that people
no.
should.
This is where I thought you were going.
It's a compounded representation. Like, there's actually a documentary on Netflix. I forget the fucking name of it. Yeah, I watched it recently, but it's a documentary that it's focusing on two high school girls that committed suicide because of like cyberbullying, and because like I believe one of them was date raped, and then the like rumors started spreading and like slut shaming and all, like the narrative was completely twisted on her, and she had no control over it, and it wrecked her whole like experience in high school and stuff. And it's a documentary, so it's a lot more, obviously it's real, it actually happened. And it's not a good I wouldn't say it's a bad representation. It's just like, it's the Degrassi representation, where like literally every fucking social avalanche that could befall a child falls on Hannah. It's like literally any kind of bullying, any kind of tragedy, it all like falls on her, when in reality, when this stuff really happens, it's like one thing. It's like one thing that snowballs out of their control, and the rest of the social, you know, society at high school kind of like wrecks it up, essentially. And that's the one thing that just ruins them, makes them feel helpless, and gets them that point. Whereas in the show, it's like literally she is the center of the universe. Every bad thing that could happen to a girl in high school happens to her on the span of a year, which is not what really happens. But it's like, it's done for entertainment purposes, I guess. It's like,
in the end, it is entertainment.
They're trying to knock as many cans over as they possibly can, so they can show like, okay, this could happen, that can happen, that can happen, that can happen. Not to the same person at the same time, but it can happen to many people, and that one thing can drive them to feel this way.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, like a friend of ours said, one of my friends, a parent, told me that their friend had like sat down their kids and watched it with them, and they had discussions about it and stuff like that, and blah blah. This is not a fucking teaching tool, people. No. This is not a teaching tool. This is entertainment, and while it has relatable and perfectly reasonable content in it, it is not an accurate representation of suicide or of things that actually happen in high school. If you want to know that stuff, if you really want to teach your kids about the reality of these situations, like Addiction just said, go watch a documentary like was it Aubrey and Daisy or something like that?
I think that's what
watch some real life shit. Get into the what actually happens, not a dramatization that is seeking viewership and wanting to hit on key social points. Like, this is not a teaching tool unless you're able to sit down with your child and go, listen, this is a dramatization of what actually happens. This is not accurate. Some of the themes in this I want to talk to you about, but understand this is for our entertainment at the end of the day. Like, we're here to be entertained and be, sort of thrown into a mystery and all that good stuff. Uber, please.
I think it, more than anything, the value, if you want to take it to, translating it to real life, is to start conversations about some of the things, but not necessarily to represent what those things are actually like in real life. So you might see something depicted, and then wonder, okay, what does that mean? Or, I need more information, whatever. But I don't think you can take it as a standalone and say, okay, yes, now I know everything about suicide or bullying or, whatever.
Absolutely.
But definitely an entry point into, oh, this thing exists and I'm aware of it now. Now let me find more information.
Yeah.
Hey,
All right.
yeah.
All right, Russ. Thanks for the question, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
So, one thing about that, definitely, I don't think this series, should be watched by kids, and whatnot.
No.
But I think it is a good one for parents to watch, though. Even though it's not completely true.
Yes.
I think one thing that pull from it, given that I'm a parent, obviously 3, it does make it, God, it just makes you scared sometimes. Because I remember, going through the adolescent phases in middle school and high school and trying to think about, okay, what types of, beliefs and, and certain rationales, got me through kind of these crazy times. And, I never talked to my parents about it. My parents weren't neglectful either. My parents were the type of parents that wanted to talk to me every day. I didn't tell my parents jack shit most of the time.
Yeah.
But there weren't, I think a lot of times it's perceived that all these kids that kill themselves or are in trouble or whatnot, they're ones that parents don't pay any attention to. That's not true. A lot of parents try to talk to their kids and their kids won't talk to themselves.
My parents did.
I
wouldn't talk.
No. To a degree. To a degree. To a degree. Now, there's some people that have great communication, communication with their parents. There are a lot of kids that don't. But that's, parents still are trying. It's just, what I'm trying to get at is that it's so important to teach your kids to be, just be able to, mold them into individuals that can navigate these type of issues and problems and get through it. And, be there, of course.
With Hannah's character is that she is really fucking good at putting on a brave face.
Yeah.
So, especially around her parents, she seems so okay. And
it's like you got the sense that she talked to her parents, but she didn't really talk to her parents.
Right. Yeah.
Because there was so much stuff going on and they had no idea. And then for them to find out through these tapes at the end of the show was just heartbreaking. Because
or Clay's parents. Clay's parents are definitely not neglectful parents. I mean, they're trying to ask him things every single day.
They were trying,
and he just
and he blew him off.
This show in this regard is so fucking stupid. Okay, so fucking. Stupid.
Are you talking? Is this coming from your relationship with your parents when you were in high school, or
yes? But
are you generalizing?
No, I am saying that this is stupid in the way that it doesn't make sense logically or otherwise, right? So this is one of my biggest problems with this show is that the parents are constantly caring. There's only one set of parents that don't care, and or two sets of parents. That's Justin and Bryce's parents, okay? But Justin's parents his parents are Bryce's parents are always in Aspen and whatever. But the point is that there are so many opportunities for these kids to talk to a fucking adult, and not one of them does. Even one that has an adult and a parent that's a lawyer. That's a fucking lawyer. There's no sense to these kids' silence, and it's always the same shit. It's always the same shit. You can't do anything. You're not going to change anything. Blah blah blah. Oh my God, give one of those parents a fucking chance. Listen, as a kid, you're right. I didn't talk a lot with my parents, but I did talk with my parents when shit got fucking real. Okay. If I had a suicide, if the girl that I was with or trying to date or I cared about or loved committed suicide, I would not come home and pretend like I don't know her. Why does Clay pretend he doesn't know Hannah? It makes no fucking sense. Why is he keeping that a fucking secret? And then on top of that, all these parents are reaching out. The military dad, the cop dad, the kids at Tyler's parents look involved in that scene where you see the guns. Every parent's involved. The guidance counselors are pulling them in one by one to talk to them.
I don't even talk about a guidance counselor, but
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But the thing is that what I'm saying is that at the end of the show, they have the audacity. These kids have the fucking audacity to go, especially Jessica in her dissertation or deposition, I should say. She goes, this happens around the school all the time, and nobody ever does anything about it. Well, tell a fucking adult, you idiot.
Right?
Somebody fucking tell them what's going on. People can't just read minds. And this is why I think this is unrealistic, because it's not just one instance of this like brushing off your parents. I get that. Teen angst. You don't want to talk to your parents. That's fine. That might happen in some families or even most families. But every single fucking parent in that show pretty much was on them. What's going on? How are you? There's emails being sent. How are you? What's going on? What's going on? And they don't ever say a goddamn thing, and there's no reason for it. There's no fucking reason for it.
This is Ella at its most emotional.
It's mind-boggling to think that this show, and that's one of the things is I think that the show is dangerous in the fact that it reinforces this idea that like these kids just have to go in it alone. Like my parents can't do anything. My parents can't.
Right.
Oh my God.
They can't handle it or whatever.
Oh my God. Your parents can fucking handle it. One of them's a fucking lawyer who's involved with the goddamn case.
Yeah.
You know, like when she sat down, like,
well,
me,
okay,
Clay,
I agree. I agree. Clay's parents are pretty fucking cool. I mean, his dad is like badass cool, right?
Yes.
I mean, but but
maybe even a little too passive sometimes.
I know,
but
right.
they still were like trying to understand, and you know, I appreciated that. There was just so much going on with these kids that I was amazed and stunned that I could not even believe that like this is what's supposed to be like, oh yeah, this is just standard American high school, whatever. Like, oh, the girl who's got bottles of booze like tucked under her bed, and you know, they've got however many various drugs. I mean, yeah, pot, okay, but like, or you know, the rape, multiple rapes that no one ever knew about, and just like all this shit, and I just was like, have I just lived in a bubble like for my entire life that I didn't realize this, or because this seems highly unrealistic?
I mean, the rape.
Yeah. I mean, well, the rape thing. I mean, have you seen The Hunting Ground, that documentary about campus rapes all over the country? It's pretty eye-opening. The administration will fucking go beyond leaps and bounds to suppress information about rapes on campuses because their reputation is everything.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, even in high school, even when I was, in high school, there's definitely talks of roofies, like definitely talks of roofies. I'd never heard of like, very distinct cases of rape, but roofies was going around. I mean, you had plenty of kids. Okay, pot, maybe one thing. Parents might have an idea. I mean, it's pretty hard to hide pot from your parents, but there was coke going around. I mean, I went to parties where there was coke going around. Definitely parents are not cool with coke. All right. I mean, I had an instance where
no.
I had an instance where when I had an instance I had an instance where not like a really close friend or even really a friend, more, I mean, maybe friends like back in middle school. In high school, there were these two kids. They were getting in an argument. One guy would not get off. He was at his friend's house. He wouldn't get off the phone. The guy freaking pulls a gun out and thinks it's empty. Freaking shoots him in the face on accident. That kind of shit happening, dude. And it's like these parents don't know this.
I went to a party in high school.
I went
to a party in high school in Walnut Creek, California, which is one of the richest like cities in Northern California. In my friend's parents' mansion, they were gone. And there was like 500 people there, and then someone called the cops, so everyone scattered. And then we found out after everyone had like left, most people had left. There was like a group of dudes who fucking held up my friend by gunpoint and stole a bunch of shit and like pistol whipped him in like the richest like place you could ever be. It's like a gated community and shit. So like, yeah, that fucking shit happens. Like crazy shit happens in high school.
I mean, in that particular case, when your parents are that freaking cool, it is a little bit harder to imagine. But instances where the parents, are not neglectful and still, very clueless about really what's going on or how their kids are. Kids are good at faking shit, dude.
These things do happen, right? Like of course they happen. Roofies happen. Girls, girls unfortunately get raped. Guys get raped, believe it or not. But less likely in high school. But the thing is that there is this. How am I going to say this and be sensitive and not be misunderstood? Let me think for a second on how to articulate this. The counselor. Let's talk about the counselor.
Dude, that guy's a douchebag. All right.
Hold on. Just for 1 second, okay?
I hated that guy.
The culture that we live in plays a huge part in what is and isn't rape. Okay, so roofied some girl, had sex with her when she wasn't willing. Of course, rape, 100%. But we have to take into account that there are literally women out there or movements out there that if you look at a girl in a suggestive manner, they can consider that as rape, okay? Or if you catcall at them, they will consider it as rape. Yes, trust me, I've watched. I mean, I'm a big fan of social, like following up on what is, you know, feminism and social justice warriors and all that stuff and that movement and everything, and has gotten to such an extreme that sometimes you get reports of rape that are merely either regret or outright lies, or they are something much less severe than what we would consider as reasonable adults to go, oh my God, that's rape. So this is a good example with the counselor, right? Everybody's like, oh, that counselor is such a douche. He didn't follow up with her and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's a sensitive fucking issue. And you have to be very, very careful before you start blaming people about rape, especially guys. You know how many innocent men go to prison for the rest of their lives because a girl said that she raped him, and then later on 20 years later go, actually he didn't, or actually I fucked up, and those people just serve 20 years and they have to come out of there, you know, they have to come out and try to reintegrate in society, and they've got this stain on them and everything, and it's fucking horrible. So whenever these things pop up, the guidance counselors, they take this shit so seriously, but they want to make sure that before they start pointing fingers at anybody with this kind of allegation, because this can ruin people, just an accusation can ruin a person's life. You have to be sensitive to that. So when Hannah goes in and talks to that counselor, and she says, you know, he says, you have to tell me who this is, you have to tell me what happened, you know, and she's like, no, like she won't give a name, she won't explain the situation. And so his only option then is to go, well, if you're not going to cooperate with me to the capacity where I can help you, you have to move on. Like that's what he's saying.
Now, hold on,
I agree. Hold on. I'm just give me a second.
Okay.
You're right. He did ask shitty questions, and he's not with impunity, right? He should have 100% at the least called the parents immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Said, hey, yes, yeah, absolutely. God. And honestly, if it were me, I would have gone after her. You know, like I would have left that thing and been like, Hannah, wait. Like I would not have allowed her to walk away. I'm not saying that he is without guilt. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that these are sensitive issues, and Hannah was purposely not giving him the information that he needed to take action as a guidance counselor and as a staff member to really help her. She was being difficult. And what she did is the same thing that she did with fucking Clay, where she expects people to chase her down. She leaves and she goes, I'm standing outside and the door's still closed. It's like she almost baited him into following her, and when he didn't, she got mad. The same thing with Clay. Clay, after that whole scene, we see this with Hannah, her behavior over a course of different scenes, where she goes, leave me alone, and somebody goes, Hannah, they're like, I'm so sorry. No, leave me alone. I don't want you around me. And he goes, listen, I'm so sorry. Like, let's just talk about it. She goes, leave me the fuck alone. And then when he leaves, she goes, why did you leave that day, Clay? You know, it's like
leave me alone means the opposite.
Fucking mind games with people.
Yeah.
What you mean?
No,
what you say, you know, like so when the guidance counselor comes in, it makes me of course, there's definitely more he could do. He was fucking wrong, but at the same time, like I sympathize with him because Hannah is just such a fucking difficult character that she expects these people to like hunt her down to find out her true feelings. Just fucking talk.
Yeah, no, I don't think that like the show tried to paint her as being like a complete victim, and that, you know, she wasn't partially at fault in the way that she responded to other people when they reached out. But I think in the instance of the counselor, yes, he asked for information, but the questions that he asked were already leading and sounded like he was trying to paint her as making it up, or, you know, not telling the truth, that she was, you know, it was almost victim blaming in the way that he asked the questions. And that's what I find a problem with. Yes, he should have asked probing questions, but when you ask questions that already sound like you're being accusatory of the person who's coming to you asking for help, I don't blame her for not wanting to answer them, because it's like he's already given the impression that he's not actually there to try and help. There should have been more open, less accusatory questions, more of just like, tell me what happens, you know, give me the full breakdown of the scenario, not what were you wearing? What were you doing? You know, whatever. Like those types of pointed questions make someone who has been in that situation already feel like they're being victim blamed, and then they don't want to talk about it because there's no point. They won't be believed.
I totally agree with that, but the rebuttal to that is, in that scene specifically, it was almost like 40-year-old virgin. Like, how do you pick up women? Oh, just ask them a question back to what they say. It's like, she's like, I'm feeling bad. Why are you feeling bad, Hannah? Well, I feel disgusting inside. Why do you feel disgusting inside? It was literally everything that she said. He just asked back in a question. And what I saw that as was not necessarily victim blaming, but that he was distracted by the phone call that was coming in constantly. He has his wife, you know, we saw that scene with his wife and his child and that kind of home life. He's worried about neglecting her and all that stuff. So he's just kind of an autopilot. He's probing, but not in the capacity that he probably should be. But it's almost like he's just feeding her back the statement she's saying in a question. And I think Hannah took things the wrong way too, because there's a point where he goes, no, that's not what I meant. And she was like, okay, I guess I'm just this. I guess I'm just this, you know? And she just walks away without ever trying to understand the guidance counselor as well. It's not one-sided. It's not the guidance counselor's job to just understand Hannah. Hannah has to understand the guidance counselor as well. That's called communication. So if this person is going, hey, hold on, that's not what I meant, you have to give them the opportunity to explain themselves and explain what they meant. Because he tried to do that, but she was already so hurt by that point, she just fucking left and then wanted to be followed.
Yeah,
you know, this is not good communication.
I can understand that too, but I mean, don't get me started with this counselor, because I thought that counselor was just the worst, like, actor and everything. I mean, so it was hard to even like
his acting
talk about that.
He
but
was in the position of authority. And she was coming to him as like the person who's basically supposed to be her help and her lifeline as the counselor. They were not on even ground in terms of communication. Did she screw up in communicating with another human being? Yes, I agree with that. But they were not on even ground in that. So he should have definitely been more considerate of the mind state that she would have been in at that time.
He's supposed to be more empathetic. I mean, he's a freaking counselor. Okay, so you're supposed to pick up on these things and over ask things, you know. So yes, was she at blame? Yeah, she was at blame. She's definitely at blame for not communicating well, but he's supposed to go out of his way, especially, you know, in this particular case, you know, when they're feeling a certain way and asking, you know, any kind of mention of feeling hopeless and not wanting to live at all. I mean, that should be red flags everywhere. Fuck my phone, you know, and just be sitting there and, you know, and just making sure that, you know, just asking it as much as you can. So, I mean, it's hard. I wish they would have picked a different actor that would have been more convincing. I mean, I hated that dude from the very moment he was on the screen. So it didn't,
I agree.
You know, I had a weird, at least perception of him, even in that very powerful scene.
I want to restate again, though. I know ultimately the counselor is wrong. Yes. What I'm saying is that Hannah could have done a lot more to present herself to her case, to open up. You know, I felt like it was this weird one-sided conversation.
Sure.
Like, you know, and it felt weird to me. But this is the thing too, and this is why this show starts to get sort of interesting and intricate, and probably why I like it, is because it all ties into the narrative, right? Because then you've got Bryce, who, and this is where I'm going to put this in quotes, even though we know it was fucking rape, raped her. The reason I say that is because we're allowed an omnipresent view as the viewer, right? We're allowed this view of what has happened to Hannah, and we know that she was raped. But let's look at the case of Bryce. Bryce makes a point and says, hey, some of these girls say things they don't mean. They're back and forth. This, you know, like, you know, I'm under the opinion if there's a question, you don't. Obviously, this isn't me speaking, but this is Bryce. And Bryce's point is that, you know, she never said no. She never tried to stop him. She got half naked and jumped in his tub, you know, in his jacuzzi at his party. He's thinking this is something that she wants, and so he goes for it. Now, while too aggressive, I definitely agree this was rape. You sort of, in a warped way, start to understand sort of his mindset and his point of view, because you see Hannah so often constantly do the opposite verbally of what she really wants. It all ties in with Clay, again with Clay.
Hey.
Clay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, Hannah. Leave me alone. You know, blah, blah. Leave me alone. Get the fuck out. And then she goes, why did you leave? Why did you leave? You know, this happened. This miscommunication where
there's no
sometimes
miscommunication in that scene though.
There is.
Ella.
What are you
Literally
talking
No
about?
way. There's no miscommunication.
She
Dude,
literally
hold
tried
on.
to stop him.
she tried to
hold
stop
on,
him.
hold on,
It's very
hold on.
clear she tried to
I'm
stop
not
him.
talking from the omnipresent view. I'm saying from Bryce's point of view.
I'm
from
saying the
Bryce's
words
point
that
of
came
view.
out
Yes,
of
she
her
got in the
mouth.
tub. Yes, she was like half dressed and everything. But then when he started trying to, do whatever with her, and she was like, "No, stop." From his perspective, those
But she never
words were
said no stop. She never said no stop. She never said stop. She never said no. She never physically resisted him. She never did any of that shit.
Did though?
No,
She said
didn't.
no.
Watch
She
that
said
tape.
no.
Watch it again.
I'm gonna watch it again. I could have sworn she said no. I could have sworn physically she did things to
She
fight.
struggled.
Yeah, struggled, and so I have to go watch again exactly what
I'm not.
words came out of her mouth. So
I just want
need
to be clear. My point is not that it's right. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I sympathize. With
I know. I
No,
know.
I
that's
know
not
what you're
you're
saying. I get what you're saying.
I just want to be
I
clear
get
because
what-
I
I
know
get
people
what
are going to watch this and they're going to go, "Oh, Ellohime is, he wants to back the rapist, kind of thing." It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
I
is
get
that the themes of the show get interesting because of the way that Hannah treats other people and the way that she handles other situations is very wishy-washy, very back and forth. It is not concrete. She almost never says what she really feels. She always does like the opposite. So when Bryce says something like, "It can be fucking confusing," you got to go, "Okay, I can see why he would feel that way." Not that it was right, not that he should have, but at least it gives this sort of weird sort of twist to it that I can see why he would think that, Not that it's right.
I get what she's saying, but okay, chat's saying she said no too. So I'm just going by your numbers.
Bryce,
I'm pulling it up. I'm pulling it up.
Okay. All right.
With the conversation between Bryce and Clay, where Clay basically, was like trying to get him to admit it, and Bryce goes on this whole thing about that. But when Bryce is like talking about how girls just want him and whatever, like he's already clearly delusional or has some kind of perception of himself.
God complex.
It was the glorification from the school too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole like she wanted it kind of thing and whatever. I don't think that from his perspective he could have been rational in that situation to have noticed when someone was saying no, because in his mind every girl says yes to him. So
and that's an excellent point. Again, we're not trying, this is not trying to make one person right or the other. It is simply trying to understand the motivations behind the character. Right. And I think Justin actually is an even more incredible instance of just how intricate some of the relationships, because I honestly find Justin, and this is going to be the one that sets people off, but I'll explain myself after. I honestly think Justin is one of the most sympathetic characters in the show.
He's the most complex character for sure.
He's the most complex, and he's the most. I think he's one of the most sympathetic in the show. For many reasons, which I will rant for in a second. But I just got done with one rant. I feel really bad.
We actually have another caller, Thule, that's been waiting for a while. So let me pull him in real quick. Thule, what's up, man? You there, Thule?
Hello.
I'm watching the scene while you figure this out. I'm gonna see if he actually says no.
All right, I think maybe he's not here for now. Message me later.
And that's another thing too. You got to understand that Bryce went up to her earlier in the show and grabbed her by the ass and said, "It is tight," to her. And then, not even a week later, she's at his house half naked in his jacuzzi tub. These are messages that are being sent, by the way, subliminally, but they show these scenes for a purpose. There's a reason. It's not just like, oh, he's abusing her, like that kind of thing. It's that, it gives you an insight into why Bryce might have thought this was okay.
I mean, I do agree with her putting herself in a potentially bad situation was, pretty, it was kind of odd and crazy.
It sends mixed messages.
It doesn't make any sense, but it's like more of a micro thing in those specific things, and we talked about it already. So that's not really the issue. It's just her being at Bryce's place was just super crazy, and it was just weird to begin with, like even from a plot standpoint. Thule was talking but couldn't hear you. Okay, let me try again, Thule. Don't know what happened there. Hello, Thule, you there? Okay, never mind. All right, we'll have to I don't know what's going on there. Monkey, if it's working on the general, then maybe we'll have to try to figure something out. Yeah, so let's talk about Justin a little bit. So obviously a dynamic with him, having him be in a position where Bryce has supported him, has almost been a support system for him, given that his family life is shitty and obviously, just Bryce letting him live there, his parents taking him in, paying for stuff for him, and like big stuff. So that on top of, Bryce raping his girlfriend, knowing it, him hiding it from Jessica to protect her. So
never says no. Never says no. Never says stop. Never says no. Never says stop. What she says is, she goes, sorry, I've got to go. And he goes, no, stay. And then it happens. That's it. That's all she says. Sorry.
But she did struggle.
She didn't struggle. She doesn't.
Did.
No, she starts to get out and he grabs her arm and pulls her like, hey, stay. And then there's no struggle. It's not like she's hitting him in the chest. There's no pushing. There's none of that stuff.
Like,
she tries to kind of, okay, I'm gonna go. Sorry. And then he was like, no, stay. And then that's it. There's no no. There's no stop.
Her trying to get out though is her trying to get away from the situation. And him pulling her back.
I just watched.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is her trying to get out is her trying to get away from the situation.
But that's not. But that's not.
Already
that's
said,
not struggling.
I don't want to be here.
Yeah. No, but she doesn't say I don't want to be here. She says sorry.
No, that's body language that says I don't want to be here.
Ah, but now we get into body language. Like this is where things start to get lost in communication. That's what I'm saying. Is that these are complex situations. Is my thing. So honestly, she says, please, Bryce, is what she says also. And yeah, I don't know. I'm watching this and it just goes into her narrative then. Like there's what I see from the omnipresent view is no true struggle. I do see her try to, kind of, I got to go. And he says, no, stay. And there's a point where he grabs her arm, but there's from what I'm seeing, and I just watched it, I wouldn't say that she struggled to get away. I wouldn't say that she didn't say no. She didn't say stop. And that's why in the scene with Bryce, it gets a little complicated because he goes, did you rape her? And he's like, no, I assumed she wanted it. That's what he says. Like, I assume that she wanted it. And he says in that scene,
he's a narcissist.
She didn't say no.
So.
Yeah, he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
And he says, I didn't say, she didn't say no. She didn't say stop. He says that in that scene. And again, I want to iterate. This is not right. It's not right what you did. From an omnipresent point of view, it's not right.
We got it. Okay. All right, Tully's back, guys.
I just mentioned me.
Tully, you there?
Hey.
Yes, I hope I am.
Hey, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what happened. I had to restart my Discord.
It's all good. Got a question for us?
Well, I was going to touch on the whole counselor thing, but then Ellohime said everything that I planned to say because I'm very much on the same page as him. I have the whole history of suicide and depression and all that, so I've kind of been on his side this whole time.
Okay.
The other thing I was going to touch on was the I don't think you guys have said anything about it yet. Clay's friend Jeff, that guy he was tutoring that died in the car crash.
Yeah. The coolest guy.
That was well done because the entire way through, you didn't really realize he was gone in the present state until it actually happens. I don't know if it was just me who didn't catch that, but I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, you didn't realize he was the person in the accident, and even that it was caused by the stop sign. I feel like that all kind of came at a headway all at once for me. It's just like, oh my God, wow, that's crazy. All these crazy, terrible things happening. Obviously because of this one party. So
that was such a weird thing too, because it was definitely a more of a butterfly effect sort of representation. Because it's like somebody hits a stop sign, there's something in the road, she takes off, doesn't call the police, doesn't try to pick anything up or fix it, and then somebody else hits the sign, and this whole accident happens.
I mean, calling the police at the stop sign, they're not going to fix it that night anyway.
That was so weird.
It was kind of
that was weird. Yeah. It's but also it's not that hard to just get out of the car and move the stop sign. But it was weird because it's you're at fault for this person dying because you didn't do something about hitting a stop sign. It was a really kind of strange situation, but then it does make you think about things that you consider to be kind of minor that could actually turn out to be pretty detrimental to somebody else if you're not careful. Like it just kind of was into this whole meta of, you know, be careful of your actions type of thing in the overall theme of the show.
Yeah, it kind of makes me sit there and be like, I don't think Sherry even deserved to be on the tapes because of what happened. Like,
Right.
Right.
Max,
She was one of the
she
least,
wasn't like she wasn't like one of these people who sat there and, you know, actively made her life, Hannah's life worse. So it was just kind of, it was almost like it was like a silly one-off excuse. I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that kind of goes back to one of my complaints about the show is as you started getting into some of those middle tapes, it was like they were just so committed to every episode was a new tape. And so they had to stick to that format. But some of them, like the reason why was pretty thin, that it was like they were just trying to add things in to fill up an episode, and it wasn't quite as engaging as some of the others.
Yeah, like the poem guy, you know, the guy that printed her poem, I think was another one that was is
Yeah.
Or like even with Marcus and Zach, like what they did wasn't cool, but I don't think it was enough to fill up a whole episode. You can't condense those things.
They were just I like the Zach one, but not the Marcus one. The Zach one was kind of interesting.
Zach led her on like a thin thread of emotional, you know.
Right.
That was actual torture.
Marcus was just a chode. Like that's it.
Marcus was a chode.
Zach seemed like he was trying to like genuinely be a decent guy when he first kind of started talking to her and sat down with her at the restaurant. So I kind of felt bad for him, and then he just didn't really take the rejection well.
He turned into like every single creepy PM on Reddit. Of like, I thought girls wanted a nice guy. Apparently, you're a fucking stupid, ugly bitch, and I hate you.
Well, not just that. I'm going to go and steal all the.
Do that when they're like, I was trying to be nice to you, but I can't. But then you just hurt my feelings, and you're stupid, and I hate you. It's like, dude, grow the fuck
that
up.
Scene was
grow
like that.
Yeah, perfect, nailed it.
but then he ended up torturing her essentially, right, by stealing all those messages. So that I think that's part that was interesting was that because. You know, like you said, his character was more of a decent guy. It's just he had trouble with rejection, and even when Clay carved that into his car, he did actually told his mom not to worry about it, but in the end, he ended up telling her something, right? You know, one thing that I forgot to mention, and that wanted to ask you all's opinion too, is that all these tapes, and when we're first. Learning about them, and you see the character saying, "Oh, it's her interpretation of everything," or it's her view, right? It's her outlook on everything. You kind of had the sense that there might be some stuff that she's telling that's not true, right? Mm-hmm. But then you start to realize, no, all of this stuff is true. But then Zach's note was the one thing that was not true, based on what she said. So. I wanted to see what you guys thought of that. I mean, was there a point in that? Because the rest of it seemed to be true, unless maybe the sequels kind of build upon that.
No, I think there absolutely was a point because there were multiple times where someone said that's her perspective or that's her truth. That's not my truth, and that's absolutely true in life. Memory is fallible. It's not perfect unless you have an eidetic memory. But so how she remembered things or how she perceived things absolutely is going to be different than like what someone else might have seen or the intent or whatever,
or even the reality.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have
an unreliable narrator.
Events, so I think that was like that sort of solidified it, because someone else could say, oh, well, that's her truth or her perspective, and they're just saying that because they know she's right and they don't want to be called out on whatever shitty stuff they did. But when someone has tangible proof that, what she's saying doesn't meet reality, then I think that definitely, makes that question or that accusation of her, presenting just her truth more real and has more weight to it.
So then I guess the question is, how strong really are these tapes for any kind of, crime or evidence for any wrongdoings here?
Well, I think some of the tapes still hold up, because they have the proof of the picture and stuff like that. And then Clay's whole getting the admittance of rape, I think, is a little light on his part, but it's still there. But the stuff like I said, the stop sign and, Zach, not taking rejection well is kind of just silly in a way.
They got dirt on that stalker kid from the fucking photo lab.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if he can be charged with that because he's a minor, but still, it is like stalking is a crime.
Yeah, but I think the tapes are still valid in that she's explaining her reasons why she killed herself. And so from her perspective, you know, perception is reality. So however she perceived these events, these were the things that, you know, she considers attributed to why she made that decision. You know, right or wrong, that was her stance on it. So I think they're valid in the sense of her personal explanation, but in terms of representing, you know, the actual black and white facts and, you know, can anything be used in court, whatever, I think that's something that's an entirely a different conversation.
Okay. All right, Tully, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. So maybe a couple more things. We didn't even talk about the actual scene of her, you know, committing suicide. What'd you guys feel? I mean, I had to say that scene turned my stomach a little bit. And there's not many things in like cinema that's turned my stomach. There's only been a few times. One of the things I remember is like the movie Kids. I remember there was like one scene in Kids that turned my stomach. But this was actually one of the few things that's done it, like in a long, long time. So I kind of want to see how you guys reacted to it.
Yeah, I found it weird that my face was contorting and I was having to sort of look away for a bit in that scene. It's interesting because I'm born in the age of the internet, right? You know,
right.
like
we've seen crazy things.
We've seen crazy things on the internet. That doesn't mean that there are personal experiences, but you know, I think this generation is more desensitized to that kind of thing than any other generation before us, personally. And I've seen dead people. I've, you know, seen some horrific things that I'm, you know, not willing to talk about, and car accidents and stuff like that. So I was surprised when it started to happen that I went, whoa. I remember I was in the airport and I was waiting for my next flight last night when I watched it. And I remember just going like, oh, damn, oh shit. And like, I looked around and yes, visceral. Yes. It's a great word. That's a perfect word. And I was like, damn. I'm like, why does this bother me so much? I feel like, I mean, I'll be honest, like in my time on the internet, especially when I was younger, you know, I mean, Faces of Death was like,
me too.
You know,
I've gone,
you
through
know,
that
like I
phase
think
too.
if everybody's honest and they're like, you know,
it's tasteless.
You know.
I feel like it's not even so much how it was shot, how like the special effects, the cinematography, the music, sound, whatever. I think it's mostly because you've spent 12 hours getting to know this character and hearing her voice, and you know it's coming. You've known it's coming from the very beginning. So I feel like I binged this. I watched it all in one day. And so from the very beginning, you have this knot in your stomach. You're like, you know it's going to happen. You think and you think and you convince yourself you're prepared to see it, but then they show it to you in all its, you know, bloody glory, I guess, or whatever. And it's like you can't really prepare yourself. Like, and I feel like that's what made it such a good scene. It was like they could have fucked it up entirely and made it not powerful at all, but they did that very, very well.
I think because they made it like it wasn't just a calm thing, you know, like this is real. It was very raw. You know, the fact that she like screamed out in pain because you would, you know, and so I think it just, and then the emotional level of like being attached to a character and, you know, all of that mixed in with it. But I appreciate the fact that they did, and that they didn't like soften it or romanticize it or anything like that. Like, this is a horrible
thing. They didn't do the
thing.
Tarantino fucking pan away, like bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
If there was one good thing about like if I were to say for like, you know, like teenagers to watch,
prevent
yeah, watch that scene.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to kill yourself? Here, watch this. You know, like that is so, I mean, just so appalling and so repulsive and so just like, oh, it's just so fucking
There's
graphic.
nothing romantic
I'm
about
glad.
it. Yeah.
Sometimes I don't, and this is a great example. Since, you know, this is obviously, we talk about media and stuff, movies being a part of it. This is from a, you know, cinematography point of view. This is actually a great instance of a brutal scene with purpose. You know, like you get certain scenes and it's just grotesque violence, right? For almost the sake of violence. Like, you know, like the movie 300, you know, like there's points where it's like so bloody, it's pornographic, you know?
Literally anything Zack Snyder does that's violent is just for violence' sake.
Yeah,
He never
just
has
for
any.
violence' sake. But this show specifically, I think, stays away from a lot. I mean, there's a few instances of violence, like when, you know, Clay gets beat up or whatever. But like,
the fight
I think it
with
stays
Alex
away from
was
that.
particularly brutal when he gets into that fight with I was like, oh fuck, dude, like they're wailing on each other. This is cool.
That's a long ass fight. That's a long ass fight to fight someone for too.
It's like that fight scene from They Live, man.
Yeah. It was kind of like that. Just keep going. 15 minutes. No, but my point is that I think they did an incredible job of using brutality and I guess you could say gore, to a extent, to drive home a really important message, a very powerful scene. It was used as the scene wasn't there for the sake of the blood and the gore and the realness of it. The realness, the blood and the gore was there for the sake of the scene. There's a big difference there. And I think, since we're going to be critically looking at some of these things, it's good to differentiate when these are powerful scenes and when these are scenes that are just, out there just to go, oh, wow, blood, So I think it was an incredibly powerful scene. It was powerful enough to hit me when I didn't even realize it was hitting me. My face contorted by pure reaction. Like I was there, like totally whatever, I was like, okay, I know this. We all know it's coming. And then when it happened, I still reacted in a very God, kind of way. Yeah. So it was really, really an incredible scene. Honestly, I felt like. So I want to talk about.
Oh, go ahead. You do want to talk?
I was gonna say I want to talk about Justin, but if you had,
go for it. No, just go for it. Yeah.
I want to talk about Justin. I feel like a lot of these, like several of these kids, like had so little to do with the situation, and I don't know why they're there sometimes. Like the gay kid, like he published this story. I don't know why he even lied about that. Like, why did you even lie? It seems such a harmless thing, like, yeah, I published this beautiful poetry. That's what my fucking paper does. But like he gets dragged into it, and then like we said, Zach, who gets dragged into it for like, I mean, what was his big offense? Stealing notes out of her little baggie in the classroom. Like, then he gets dragged into it. There's a couple of instances, but I feel like Justin is, like I said earlier, the most sympathetic character out of everybody. Because again, the reason I like this show is it takes like complex psychological situations and tries to make you at least sort of see, their side. Like with the Bryce thing, they do a lot where you can actually, kind of see where Bryce's mindset is at, the glorification, the lack of, communication, stuff like that. And you can see how that results in that horrible fucking, tragedy. But with Justin, Justin is really honestly a product of like a lot of other people's decisions and actions. For instance, everyone's like, oh, Justin spread around the picture. Well, no, Justin didn't really spread around the picture. No. He shouldn't have shown his friends for sure. That's fucked up and that's wrong. No. But Bryce grabbed that fucking phone and Bryce sent that to everybody else while his friends literally held him back while he was going, no, don't.
Yeah, but then he played along with the story though, and that falls into the whole. That's the whole peer pressure.
And there was a growth, but here's the thing: is there's a growth procession that you see in Justin, where he's this college student. Again, the glorification comes in, stuff like that. He's with the guys, blah blah blah. Again, not right, but it wasn't him necessarily who took that and then spread it around the school. His home life, out of all of the characters, is by and far the worst. His mother doesn't care about him to the point where she brings criminals home and they're choking him, like threatening his life, and she will not help him. On top of that, there's this element to this that I don't think a lot of people realize either, and they didn't really touch it, but very just kind of here and there. Is you guys remember like Sandusky? And it's gonna kind of tie in. Yeah. But if you guys remember like Penn State and all that stuff that happened with Sandusky and blah blah blah. Well, and unless I'm wrong, Sandusky that had a boys camp. This is like a guy who has diddled kids. Okay, he has fucking diddled kids. But for the longest time, he was a pillar in the community. And he was a big pillar in the community, and he actually took in wayward boys into his boys camp and helped them out and did all this stuff. He was super rich, and he even ended up adopting one of these kids from like this home where the kid couldn't eat. The parents were able to provide for them. There were fleas everywhere, that kind of stuff. He came in and sort of rescued this kid, right? Now, he's a pedophile at the end of the day, and this is how he gets control over this person, right? Because he provides them with money, with a place to stay, with food, with all these things, so that when the victim is assaulted, it's almost like they don't have the power to say no. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it traps them. This is a continual psychological approach to pedophiles and people who assault people. So in the case of Bryce and Justin, like in the scene where Bryce rapes Jessica, his girlfriend, it's so hard to contemplate why he would allow that to happen, why he would allow Bryce to push him out and say, what's yours is mine, buddy, that kind of thing. But when you take into account Justin's home life, the fact that he basically lives with Bryce, that
all
his friends revolve,
almost like family.
Revolve around Bryce. Yes, his friends revolve around Bryce. His ability to have a place to stay, to live, to eat, to have everything revolves around Bryce. So it's this power over the victim, which I think is incredibly important to point out, that Bryce has over Justin, that would allow Bryce to do this. And you see Bryce's behavior with everybody. He's so cool. You can have this for free. You can take this. Don't worry about it, buddy. Get me next time. It's that nice mentality. I put that in quotations because ultimately he's gaining power over these people. That's like textbook fucking predator kind of mentality. So Bryce is a fucking predator, but he's a predator of means, and so Justin, when this thing happens where his girlfriend is raped, it's wrong, and he should have done something. He should have said something. But again, that abuse on Justin from Bryce causes him a hang up. And it's really interesting because Justin then later, as he's processing this, he does break free of this. He does go to Bryce and said, you're a rapist in front of everybody. You're a rapist. Fuck you. Too little, too late. But Justin tries to do something. Justin gets kicked out of the house. And at the end of the show, Justin's on the streets. Justin has no home. Justin contemplated suicide. He wanted to get Jessica back. She said absolutely not. The last thing we see is takes a drink with Bryce and then fucking treks off. And I see the difference between him and like Hannah, right? So like Justin, somebody who arguably has been through a shit ton in his life, whether he calls it on himself or not. Hannah, who's been through a shit ton in their life, whether they call it on each other or not, it becomes this weird, like, this is the kid that like straps up, says, all right, this is my life. This is going to be fucking shitty. Let's do this. Let's do it. But Hannah, not that it's right or wrong, but Hannah then decides to take her life. So we get both sides of the spectrum, right? But Justin is painted very early as the bad guy. So maybe it's kind of hard to look into these kind of more critical areas of his life and sympathize with him. But as a character, he makes plenty of mistakes. But at the end of the show, he's a completely different person, very reformed, tries to do the right thing, and at the end of it accepts, his fate, basically, and his choices and his consequences, which I think is an incredibly powerful character just for a show. To have. And that's why I think I sort of sympathize with him out of all the kids, like the most. I think he had the most reason to be as fucked up as he was, because again, he was a victim too. He was.
I think it's interesting too, when you look at him and you take like his character and his situation and you think about it in terms of like just a broader sense in society where, you have people who, they have shitty home lives. They're struggling just to get by on their own. And, when people say, well, why didn't you do X or Y? Well, you have to understand that for them, they've been so like stripped down in terms of, like their own power. I can't think of the word I'm trying to use right now, but like they don't have, they don't feel empowered to really do anything. They're just kind of whatever's handed to them. They just try to make the best of it and get on with life. They just soldier on in a way. So when they're presented with a choice of jeopardizing that scenario where, that's their last lifeline, the last thing that they can hold on to have like any sense of normalcy and actually live. And, they're supposed to decide between that or, going out and helping someone else or doing something that's supposed to be for the greater good. Like they're going to choose the thing that's going to keep them from like losing that last bit of normalcy.
Lifeline.
Either
It's a lifeline. Yeah. It's his lifeline, really. You know, he thinks if I'm not friends with Bryce, I'm gonna end up on the street and dead.
Yep.
And that's not an unreasonable expectation considering his home life.
No, I mean that's what ends up happening at the end of the movie, or at the end of the TV series. So, I think he was definitely one of the best developed characters, you know, out of all of them, right? Because there's how many, like 10 of them? There's something like that, and most
there's
of them
13 reasons.
Well, there's 13
characters.
sides, but I mean, I guess if you count
There's
parents
much
and
more
everything,
than that,
if you count parents and everything, there's probably like 15 people or something. But in terms of the kids, I think I feel like he was the most developed. I mean, I think
you saw the most progression between him and Alex, honestly.
Yeah, but
maybe a little bit from Clay, but not a whole lot. I think it was those
what do you guys think about Clay?
I didn't understand why he didn't talk to his parents like that. I already brought up, so it made it sort of weird for me. But I think it needed that to continue the narrative. You know, I don't think he could have, and it still made sense as a show. So I can accept that.
It would have ended at episode 2 if he did. You were like, Dad, here are these tapes.
Yeah,
like figure it out.
I think I could have done with a little bit less of watching Clay ride around on his bike, super sad and thoughtful to crazy music. Like, I think it could have cut a little bit. I think they could have made this 12 episodes and just cut a lot of that out. But as a character, I thought he was very interesting. I thought that he sort of represented the everyday decent individual, right? The kind of person that we hoped would be more prevalent in our society, but sadly is actually sort of a minority, which is kind of weird. Chan, you said.
I have to say, even from an acting standpoint, I felt like I liked whoever the actor. I forget who the actor was. I liked Clay a lot more.
Vignette?
Yeah, Dylan Vignette. I liked him a lot more when he was angry. I think he actually did a lot better when he was angry. When
he's pretty fucking scary when he's mad.
Yeah, and it was like, he's like
every
really
time
good
I
there.
see him, I can only picture him as the bully character and Let Me In. And he's fucking sadistic in that movie. He's sadistic, dude.
He's also lost. What's his name? The doctor, Matthew Fox. What's his name in the show? I forget. Fucking Lost. The doctor guy. It's Jack.
Jack.
Yeah. He's Jack's son in that show, actually.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, I was trying to place it forever. I was like, where is he from? And then I looked.
I didn't.
Yeah, he's Jack's son.
You know, I didn't love him when he was just kind of normal. I thought he was boring and kind of the awkward antisocial guy they were trying to make him out to be. But it was okay.
He has anxiety,
so it was just
they make a point that he has anxiety, so that makes sense that he's not super talkative and outgoing, you know.
Yeah.
I like the scenes with Clay a lot less when he's with Tony. And the reason is because like Tony's so fucking dramatic and he's wise beyond it's like Tony plays
you like Tony
plays
more.
It's like they wanted the parental figures to still be there, but the kids never to talk to the
parents. Tony is the Gandalf character of the show.
Tunnel snakes rule.
Yeah.
Like that's every time I see Tony. But like Tony says some weird shit. Like when if I was in the situation and I had listened to those tapes, and if Clay was there drilling me and saying, "Did I kill Hannah Baker? Did I kill Hannah Baker? No. What do you believe? Do you kill?" And he looks at me and goes, "Yeah." It's like, what? Why did you tell him that? Like he didn't kill Hannah Baker. And once he's done with the tapes, it's like, why did you tell him he killed? I mean, in this really warped, it
was a universal. Yeah, it was like we all did, right?
Universal.
That was what he meant by it.
He says it right before it. Like he says, like a couple of times, like guys, he's like, Clay, we all let her down. He says that twice, and Clay keeps going at him. Did I do it? Did I do it? Did I do it? He says yes. You know, and it's like,
and then the tape happens, and it's like, did I?
The whole mountain climbing thing. I get it. You're trying to let this kid know that life's worth living and excite him and get his adrenaline pumping and all that stuff.
Lame.
But that was
lame,
fucking laughable and lame and weird and somebody could have really gotten killed
easily. That thing is
dangerous fucking cliff, and it was like, what? Without any ropes or harnesses.
I know, right?
Yeah, that was what got me. I was like, you don't have any like robes? Like you
Just get one rope, dude.
hello?
I
It's
know.
not a small mountain.
It
like,
wasn't. It was
No.
easily one that you could get very, very injured or kill yourself if you
Yeah,
fell.
especially if you're not like physically trained or you're
Yeah.
a novice to mountain climb. That's like an
Yeah.
advanced mountain
Yeah,
climbing.
clearly Clay is not the
Yeah.
fucking gym rat. Like they show him in gym class, and he's like the dude in the volleyball court that stands in the back, hoping the ball doesn't come to him. You know?
Right. I feel like there
Yeah.
just need to be like, don't try this at home, like at the bottom of the screen. Like, please don't think you can climb a mountain your first go. It ain't gonna fucking happen.
Yeah,
Alright.
it was weird. I you know, every time I saw him, it was like I was looking at an adult, the adult that
His
needed to
hair-
be around, but without having an actual adult presence to
Yeah.
actually help these.
His
kids,
hair
you
was
know?
always perfect too, man.
Oh
His
my
hair was
God, that hair, dude.
fantastic. Oh my
I'm telling you.
gosh.
Just it's so, and he had a cool car.
It was
you
so
know.
weird though, because it was like, yeah, he had the fantastic hair and like the leather jacket and the car, and then he like listens to tapes, and
I
it's
know,
just
he's-
like who is this guy?
He's
It
one
was-
of those like those kids that just fits in literally every clique, man. Like you can't. No one can push him away. It's like, yeah, he's got something in common with everybody, and he's also a badass.
And then he
He's
ends
just
up
too cool.
he's dating a 30-year-old guy.
Right.
Like, what's what?
Yeah, that was also
What?
like weird.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
Yeah, it's interesting, and of course everybody loves Jeff. Like, but Jeff has to be level. Jeff has to portray the perfect character so that when he's killed, you feel sad. He's like
Yeah.
he's only in what, like 5 scenes, 6 scenes maybe. Jeff, in fact, when Jeff died, you know, like when they mentioned 2 people dying, I didn't realize it was even fucking Jeff for a long ass
Me
time.
too.
Like,
Yeah.
like it's so on the side, but like everyone's like, Jeff was the best character. Jeff was blah, blah. I wish Jeff was still alive. If Jeff was alive in the show, he would have been doing the fucked up other things that everybody else was. He
Yep.
had to be the nice guy because he
would not
died.
have been
Because,
a
Yeah.
sympathetic.
yeah, he would not have been the super friend. You have to have the super friend die so it has impact, you know? So
Yeah.
that's just,
Jeff
movie
kind of looked
magic.
like that asshole that beat up Alex too. I got them mixed up like maybe one time
did
because they
get
looked
them mixed up,
very
yeah.
similar. Yeah, that was interesting. The Asian girl. What did you think about her? She was the one. She might have been one of the least.
She made me mad.
I hated
I don't-
her character so
Yeah.
much, dude. I hated her character
I
so
I
much.
hated her because she was probably the most realistic character. I've known so many people that are just like super fucking chipper and bright, and they just want everyone to like them.
Yep.
And then they do
Yep.
shady shit, and they always
Yeah.
do shady shit
Yep.
like every fucking
Ugh,
time.
what a
Not
fucking
wrong.
coward. Look, I don't use this word very often, but I mean, I think it applies from the omnipresent view that we have of the show.
Yeah.
That girl was a cunt. All right.
I
did not use
totally
that on-
agree.
Yeah,
I will
like,
not
I
disagree
thought
with
you
you
were gonna
there.
apologize for calling her a coward at first. and
Yeah, I was
gonna
like,
fire back.
Kim.
Oh no, the C word.
Yeah, I know, me too.
she is, I think, one of the least sympathetic characters in the show. Like,
Oh,
where I feel
easily.
like
Absolutely.
Justin has
Easily.
cause and reasonability at some places, even though he makes mistakes, plenty of them. I feel like she is the opposite. Like, she has she has gay parents, and I get
I
her,
didn't
I
even
get
get
her
the
point of view,
rationale.
right?
I didn't even get the rationale
yeah.
about like my gay dads would be so disappointed
She
if
didn't want
she
to be
was
the
gay.
gay.
Let me
the
explain.
Gay parents.
Wow.
Let me
Yeah.
explain. And I am not gay. I've never been raised by gay
Right.
parents, despite what chat will tell you. But here's the thing: is that there's always this sort of question when it has 2 gay parents in society, like, is that child being raised in a healthy and appropriate way? That is not my current belief, but there are people out there in society that don't believe that that's necessarily the healthiest way to raise a child. So when two gay parents raise a child and that child happens to be gay, it almost sends the message to those people. It justifies the reasons that this is a bad environment because these guys were gay, and because they're gay, they turned her gay.
Sure.
So and from her point of view, she doesn't want that to make it look like her parents are bad parents to the fucking imbeciles and idiots in society that will just glean that as proof or evidence that they were right. So I get that sort of. Yeah, I get that sort of. And again, this is how I took it. Again, I'm not. I'm trying to understand that situation. But that's how I took it. That's how how she justified herself. But to me, I still feel like she was by far the fucking
Hated
She
her.
was like the
Hated
Emily
her.
of Until Dawn, and just like everybody can't fucking stand her.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, should we talk about next week? It's been like over 2 hours
Wait, are we
now.
done?
I know.
It's been over. It's
Are we
like.
fucking done? I've got more opinions to upset me.
Oh my gosh! All right, next week, guys. We're doing
Wait.
okay,
I just want to leave this with one last thought, okay? Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man! All right. Okay, next week we're doing a movie, and it's the big movie this week.
It's very different from what we're doing today.
It's a very
shorter show,
very
definitely.
different. Very different. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which released this past Thursday. Not this Thursday, but last Thursday. I actually watched it. Yeah, I watched it this past weekend. But yeah, go and watch it, guys, and come back next week, same time, same place, and we'll be discussing this one.
Yeah, for those, I know we have some new viewers in the chat.
I am going to be in LA next Thursday. I don't know what my schedule is going to be like.
No.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it might be a couple weeks. For those of you who are new to the podcast, basically what we do is this is basically sort of a book club for media. So we get a show that we watch during the week, or a movie, or even a graphic novel. We haven't done a video game yet, but that's not off the docket. So basically what if you guys want to follow along and join us for more conversations in the future, go watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 if you haven't, and then meet back with us it looks like probably 2 weeks from now, same bat time, same bat channel, 1 p.m. Eastern here on my channel, and we will be going into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, much like we have done for 13 Reasons Why. And you guys can obviously tell this is probably not going to be as deep and as controversial. So if you want something a little lighter, that will be definitely in possibly a couple of weeks. So we'll let you guys know, and you guys can know by following any of us on Twitter. And we'll keep you guys up to date with what's going on with the show and stuff. And I hope you guys had an excellent time watching. So, yeah.
All right, good stuff. But to wrap up, the Uber Ginger is a fantastic guest. It was a pleasure having you join our discussion. Lots of
Thank you for having me.
You picked a good episode to join us on.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. You have any shout outs to do, or where can people find you?
I am on Twitch and Twitter at _UberGinger, so you can find me in those places. And I mean, occasionally I'm on like Instagram, but I wouldn't even bother with that. And I'm live Thursday through Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Time.
All right.
Great. And thank you so much for being on the show, by the way.
Yeah,
hopefully
seriously.
everybody in chat can, give a little clap here for
Clap
because
us.
it's not, and I got to say, this is not an easy show to just jump on and be a guest for this particular show. So it was actually, in a lot of ways very courageous, especially last minute. I mean, I had asked at the beginning of the week, and Uber was like, "I'll do it," so thank you from the heart of my bottom for that.
The heart of your bottom.
The heart of my bottom, man.
Your butt heart?
Well, yeah. Wow. What is that exactly?
I mean,
No, the bottom of my heart, the heart of my bottom.
I know I got it, but I'm just like,
Okay.
the butt heart is like,
The butt hurt.
It's just a fun saying I do.
Yes. Diction, shout outs.
Me by Diction 1. They'll probably post the links in the chat. I'll be live later today, 5 p.m. playing Rising Storm 2 Vietnam beta, and also eating really disgusting food because I reached a goal on my St. Jude Play Live fundraiser.
What kind of food?
Yay!
What kind of food?
I'm just going to 99 Ranch and looking for shit that's low carb that looks like weird and I've never heard of before.
Okay.
So some of it might be tasty, some of it might not. I don't.
So Asian stuff, basically.
have a
Yeah,
pink
it's like-
bucket. It's fine.
Yeah. Hello.
Hey guys, this is my channel. If you after the show will come watch me, then we'll probably get along very well because I feel like after this show you've either wrote me off or you're my bestie. So anyways, you guys can find me here on the channel. The show is hosted on this channel, which is mine. You guys can find all the links for my Twitter and all that social media goodness here on the channel. We also have a section for the mods. Their PayPal's up there. If you guys feel like any of the mods do an exceptional job, feel free to tip them. They do hard work. Anything else? I want to thank everybody, on this broadcast for doing this broadcast specifically for this one, because we kind of had to open ourselves up a little bit and dig a little deep. And I also want to thank the audience for being so compassionate and understanding in our discussion of some very serious topics, and allowing us to share our opinions with you guys. So thank you guys. And without further ado, Chan, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find the VODs for this as well as all the previous ones on youtube.com/ChanManV, and I'm sure you'll see it being posted in the chat here. I do want to give a shout out to obviously the three of you guys for doing the show. It's so fun doing the show every week, guys. And obviously Ello and Diction and Ginger this week. I think we get a lot of enjoyment from it, and I think everybody that even watches in the chat, getting a chance to see the interaction there, it's a lot of fun being able to see that, and even the callers too. We had a couple callers today, and that's amazing. I feel like that's becoming more and more popular thing. So thanks to those folks, as well as Monkey Overlord. He's the one that's always trying to get these callers together, and is always there each and every week. Don't give him enough love, so give him some whenever you get a chance. In Ello's, he's one of Ello's mods too, by the way. But outside of that, follow the. Actually, do we have a show Twitter? Let me make sure we have a show Twitter. I forget what if we do. No, we don't. God, I keep forgetting if we do or don't for this. Never mind. Just follow us all on Twitter, and you can find out more about it. Next week, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. But until then, we'll see you next time, whenever that is, guys.
Bye.
Later.